Down. All right, we're live. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Word Balloon live streaming. John Suntress here. I am very happy to welcome Noir City art director Mike Kronenberg. Mike, it's a pleasure as always. And of course, what's your title at ringside seat?
I am the art director, associate editor, and I am the founder of Ringside Seat.
My favorite boxing magazine of the
Thanks,
moment
John.
right now. Absolutely, man. Great to see you. While we're waiting for Tom King, we're going to have some comic book documentary talk. We're going to be talking about the Masters of Comic Book Art 1987 documentary. Amazing documentary. It's on YouTube. I hope everyone has had a chance to watch and see it on YouTube before our conversation. If not, by all means, watch it afterwards. It's worth your time. And I have some notes on that. But while it's just me and Mike, we should talk about our favorite sport that's on hold right now. And that's, of course, the sweet science of boxing. We were just talking off the air, and I was telling you that I've been taking advantage of YouTube's vast library of not only the obvious, but really like, some of the hidden gems. And I was telling you guys like Cornelius Bosa Edwards, and all of a sudden you brightened up because it reminded you of Bosa Edwards' opponent.
Yeah, Bobby Chacon. Today, we're working on finishing up the latest issue of Ringside Seat, and the back page of Ringside Seat is always dedicated to like a great action fighter. We call it crowd pleasers. And this month, my editor, Bill Dethoff, picked Bobby Chacon. And you mentioned Bosa Edwards, and it was like I had just been 5 minutes before designing the page and linking up to the Bobby Chacon Bosa Edwards fight, which is a classic. It was, I think it was the Ring Fight of the Year in 1983.
Wow. Excellent, man. Big West Coast fighter, Bobby Chacon.
Right.
And a great LA Forum crowd pleaser, as I recall.
Right. Yeah, I think
Excellent.
Also the Olympic, too.
Of course, the Olympic. There's our third body, everybody. He's joining us now, and I hope
my head's so big. Are we live now?
we are live now.
Okay.
You need to go to the bathroom or something like that before we start?
No, I'm okay.
All right, excellent.
Put in my headphones.
Welcome, Tom King.
So I can. My son is running out in his boxers. He's not on YouTube.
That's God bless him. That's cool.
He went hunting for my book.
Which book? There you go. Oh. Great. I was just talking about that book. I don't know if you saw my tweet today, and we will get into our main conversation shortly.
In my office.
But did it chew up my my Columbo thing? Anyway, I was going to say that Nickel Williamson about his fine Columbo episode in that book is like, I don't remember it at all. And it's like, Jesus, that was an amazing performance when he was the bad guy.
Really? Doesn't remember it?
But so many of those, you talk to so many of those guys who were veterans of so many
I'm
events.
Still writing down my choices.
And they don't remember. These guys don't remember. You walk up to them. I've seen like actors, like horror movie actors, and different people at conventions, and I'll talk to them, or we interviewed them in the horror movie magazine I did, or in Noir City, and you talk to them about like some TV episode that you remember as a kid. It's like you love it. It's your favorite. And it's like you think I was on that. I cannot remember exactly. I have no remembrance of the details of that. Yes, I did that. So.
Well, it was like 5 days in their life, 30 years ago, sometimes even longer. I mean, no, I get it and everything. Mark Leferrier, I want to points out that Bobby Chacon was name-checked in a Warren Zevon song about Bubo Mancini called Hurry On Home.
Yeah.
That's cool. Zevon. So we had to get a little bit of our boxing talk in a little bit, Tom, before we were waiting for you. But
you talk the boxing. I am here as a guest. You guys are experts. I consider you both to be my pop culture gurus. You do not let me down. Are we also podcasting now too?
Well, we're recording this for the audio podcast, but we are live streaming on my YouTube channel, and we're also live streaming on Facebook on my YouTube or Facebook page there, John Suntress.
John, I've been doing nothing but listening to your podcast. It's ridiculous what a fanboy I am of yours now in this coronavirus time. I usually listen to tons of podcasts. Now I only listen to you. I was listening to Howard Chaykin an hour ago and yelling at my radio. I was so mad at everything he was saying. And I loved it. God bless him. We need our cranks.
Oh my God, he's the man. I love Howard.
You know what's funny is I was looking when I found that image of Columbo by Aparo in that Adventures comic, Adventure Comics from Spectre. The backstory of that issue is a Howard Chaykin illustrated Seven Soldiers story from it's like 1974. It's like one of his first works.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, fascinating. He was so pissed off, and I think I'm still doing my thing, so I don't get the. I think I'm getting the titles wrong. So.
Wait, I've got my 15. Okay, I've got my
fuck
15 choices.
15.
Sure, do you guys want to start? All right, obviously, everyone, you're
15,
itching to talk Columbo, so let's talk Columbo
I
first.
started
and then we'll
this
talk
thing.
The
I'm
documentary.
doing my 15 now.
I watched the documentary twice. All right, you're doing your 15 now. Good, I can judge you.
No problem. Yeah,
I feel our top
no,
5 is
I
going
will
to be.
not.
I took one bad one in my top 5 just so it wouldn't be in your top
5. Real fast, John Soares. Yes, the YouTube feed is live. So yeah, you can either watch it if you're watching it on Facebook, or you can go to my Word Balloon YouTube page, and it is streaming at both platforms. The beauty of StreamYards, ladies and gentlemen. I learned that from my dear YouTuber buddy, Robert Meyer Burnett, my favorite Trekspert myself. But we're here to talk about Masters of Comic Book Art. We'll talk about that later. 1987 documentary. Ken Viola made it. It was amazing, and we'll get into that. But it seems like our boys are itching to talk Columbo, and I'm happy to start off with Columbo. So.
I'm appropriately. Look at this. I've got a cigar.
Yeah, sure.
But it's too thick. It's too thick. It's not the thinner.
Not if Jose Ferrer is the bad guy. Then it's the proper size for the Jose Ferrer episode. One of my favorite episodes as well, by the way. So.
That is. Yeah, no, he was great in that one.
But he was dumb as a brick. The whole clue is the murderer smoking a cigar. He's like right in his fucking face, just smoking the cigar.
And that was one of the clues.
That was one of the clues.
It's the match, sir.
Well, he killed and then
only
lit
lit
up
by a cigar smoker, sir.
That's right.
I mean, I'll be breaking into Peter Falk the entire evening. We
are completely avoiding the ABC episodes, right?
We will talk about the ABC episodes.
Why?
Because I understand your hate of them, Mike. We've talked about this before in private conversation or on YouTube or on Twitter, I should say. I'll say real fast, I forgive the ABC TV movies because much like Star Trek Picard, it was great to see Peter Falk walking around in the raincoat again. Of course, they're 10 cuts below all the classic NBC.
But I feel like that lasts for like all of 5 minutes to see him again, and he's just so he's so over the top. He's almost become the cartoon, the cartoon version of Columbo.
I don't disagree. I like the one with Fisher Stevens, where he's kind of a Spielberg.
Yeah, where he's the Stevens. Do you know my brother and Fisher Stevens are friends, and
Cool.
They did a play together.
Oh wow,
which is crazy. Yeah,
that is crazy. I'm a big fan. Great character actor. Fisher.
That's actually one of the good ones. The McGowan one, the Patrick McGowan one that he directed. That was a good one. I think he won the Emmy for that. He won 2 Emmys. He won an Emmy for directing the one where he's the spy, the CIA guy.
And that was going to be one of my favorites of the classic run. Absolutely.
Really, I do not like that one.
I didn't have that's not on my list. That's not the
Leslie
McGowan.
Nielsen.
Well, there's better. There are better McGowan. There is a better McGowan one, of course, and I'm sure it'll come up. But go on.
All right, I'm doing my list. All right.
Wait! I have to say one thing at the top, just for the people to talk. If you are listening to this and you are not subscribed to the Patreon, you're a fucking idiot.
Aw.
Because John is working triple time to put out product. I know you're listening to this podcast. You're a comic book fan. That means you pay $4 for a comic book. Maybe you pay $4 for my comic book. Don't buy my comic book. I'm telling you. Read Strange Adventures, get the trade, whatever, and give John and $4 a month. That's all that is. One comic book a month. Just do that.
Yes, ditto. I agree.
Do it right now.
Well, these are my friends, and seriously, man, that's really nice, and it would be great. Patreon.com/wordballoon. But honestly, I've been saying it all month, and I mean it. There are a lot more people that are out of work right now. It's a tough time. Please don't spend money you don't have. It's Word Balloon is free for a reason.
No,
I'm still
money, yes.
As far as I'm concerned, I'm still growing the audience. If you can spare it, even $1 a month, that's great. So thank you very much for saying that. Honestly, Tom, that means a lot. And then same with you, Mike. I mean, really. But I'm happy to do this. I feel like it's the least I can do right now is triple up on shows to give us something to distract ourselves and
No,
have fun.
yeah,
That's one of the reasons why we're doing this.
Yeah, we were talking about that before you went live. It's just you're doing a service
Oh, that's
for
nice.
everybody,
100%,
for pop culture people.
100%, 100%.
You know, it's a service for pop culture because we need an escape really bad. Really,
I totally agree. Now, while Mike starts giving us the list, he found a gem of a comic book sequence, so it kind of ties both subjects here. Tom, some Jim Aparo art depicting Columbo.
Jim Aparo Columbo?
from Adventure Comics.
There it is. Oh, excuse me, Adventure. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, that was the Spectre. That was the Michael Fleischer Aparo Spectre run.
There you go.
That you know which issue that was? That was the one with the Symbionese Liberation Army, where they kidnapped that woman. That was when the SLA had kidnapped Patty Hearst.
Yeah.
So Fleischer decided to write about that.
Wow.
So this is when they're about to rob the bank, like Patty Hearst.
And this is really the seminal Spectre run of the 70s. I mean, this was. Am I right, Mike? Wasn't it alternating with Aquaman?
No, it didn't alternate with Aquaman. It ran, and then Aquaman was at first a backup story with Mike Grell doing the art and Paul Levitz writing it, and then it took over after, like, I think it was 2 years. It may have been 2 years or a year and a half of bi-monthly issues. But of course, we talked about Harlan Ellison. There's a link to the documentary because of Michael Fleischer and Harlan Ellison. And
Tell the story, Mike.
The whole lawsuit because in Comics Journal when Ellison was interviewed, I think it was Gary Groth.
Yeah, it was Gary Groth.
And Ellison just went off about how much he hated that entire run and the way Fleischer depicted the Spectre killing.
It wasn't he hated it; it was how much he loved it.
Was it? I thought it was how much he couldn't stand how he used how violent it was.
No, it was he said, like, comics aren't surprising anymore, except I love Fleischer stuff because he's a crazy psycho killer.
Yeah, he said bug nut crazy or something like that.
Yeah, crazy. That's right. He called him a psychopath.
He said he killed his girlfriend and mounted her body in his closet. That's how, he's like, it's well known he killed his girlfriend, mounted his body in his closet, has her bones in the closet. So everybody knows that. So those are the kind of at least he's taking risks. He meant it as a compliment.
Well, yeah, and obviously it was so over the top.
Yeah, but that lawsuit went on for years.
Yeah,
it was dragging on. Now, when I was a kid, I was just a little kid when I picked that up, and it's like I don't know if it was like this noir sensibility or this like sick sensibility that I had, but man, I loved it. You know, because it had more of that pulp sensibility that I guess that Adams and O'Neill brought to Batman. So it was like all of a sudden you see that brought to the Spectre, because when Neil was doing the Spectre, you know, it was much more of a science fiction kind of otherworldly type of thing.
100%.
But the whole idea of Jim Corrigan being the detective, and he's got the cigarette and he's got the trench coat on, and man, I love that. I still love that series. But anyways,
did you guys? No. We got to stay on that for a second. Did you guys ever see that DC showcase short of Jim Corrigan Spectre? And it was totally of that period. Steve Niles wrote it, and it was just fantastic.
I never saw that.
It's excellent. I don't know if it's on DC Universe or not, or where, you know, if it's not, and I wonder if illegally it's on, you know, YouTube or something like that. But okay, Bill DeSimone says, yeah, bug fuck crazy. I wasn't sure if it was bug nuts or bug fuck. Yeah, we can swear, it's cool. You know. So too much, man.
And to tie that back, so Dan DiDio, who was the head of DC Comics.
Yes, I know. I'm very sorry. Go on.
Yes, until God, it seems like a year ago, but it was 8 weeks ago or something.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? It was like 8 weeks ago.
He is a huge Columbo is his nerd. Like when he is just sitting around the house doing nothing, he puts Columbo. And so when I started getting into Columbo because of John and Mike, I started talking to him about it and found this out. And so we were talking about me doing a Phantom Stranger series, and I was slowly massaging him into pitching it just as each issue was like 50 pages, like a Columbo episode. We see a superhero commit a crime at the beginning, and the Phantom Stranger slowly kind of I was trying to do the Columbo format.
That's great.
They were slowly developed. Because like that's what creators do. We just rip off the things we like. I was like, I like this. I want it to happen.
Well, that's great. And Phantom Stranger was the lead in Adventure Comics before the Spectre, and it was Aparo drawing him.
Oh, beautifully.
Great stuff, man. No, I love Phantom Stranger. I love the Spectre, and I would love to see the Phantom Stranger. He would have to rumple the cape, of course. And then
Look at this.
I just have one more question, sir. I don't need to
Nice.
ask you.
That's That's one of the Adams covers. Man, he did some amazing covers for Phantom Stranger.
Do you guys know the story? He didn't go to Comic-Con until really like near the end of his life, and it was amazing. His first Comic-Con, he was literally brought to tears when they introduced him, and there was a standing ovation for him.
Oh.
He never knew
Wow.
how much we all loved him and how much we all loved his art, and I just think that's so beautiful. And also, I should point out Neil Adams, who is his own biggest fan. And that's okay because he can back it up with the work. But all that said, I made the mistake in my first interview with him. And I said, a lot of the other artists of the 70s seem to ape your style of Batman. And I said, among them, Jim Aparo. And he said, oh, no, not at all. No. Jim was always his own man. And that's nice, but you're incorrect. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. And I'm glad he said that.
When I wrote in Batcave Companion, Aparo talks about how he was influenced by Neil Adams.
Interesting.
He was influenced by Neil Adams doing Batman. He said that was the thing that drew him into wanting to even change the way he thought he was going to do Batman. So when he saw Adams' stuff, which was you're talking about 1970, so. Yeah, it's funny because Aparo definitely said that he was influenced by Adams for Batman at least.
Do you Mike? I'm glad you mentioned the Batcave Companion because it's a great book by Two Morrows that you and Mike Urey did. Mike did the '60s Batman creators. You did the '70s Batman creators. Do you did you do those interviews? Did you audio record those? I mean, how did you do them? Just
I audio recorded them, but they're gone now. They
are gone
on cassette.
Sure.
I interviewed. I went to Continuity and spent 2 days with Neil, which was like I did it on my birthday.
Let me guess.
It was not planned.
You asked one question, and it was 2 days.
Yeah,
that's God bless him, man. That's I'm telling you, my.
But listen to this. So I'm sitting there in Continuity Studios. It's my birthday, which it wasn't planned that way, and I'm up there in Continuity, and he's sitting there working on his ad comps. His advertising comps. And I'm sitting here talking to him about Batman comics. It's like, the 8-year-old me is like going nuts. And he's sitting there buying lunch for me, and talking about Batman with me. It was crazy. And with O'Neill, I had a long interview. I had like a 2 or 3 hour interview with Denny O'Neill, and that was over the phone. That was great. But I don't have that anymore. Len Wein also.
Sure.
Steve Englehart.
Terrific. I had Steve on early on, and we talked Batman, definitely.
Yeah. I talked to him like 3 times. I interviewed him about Captain America's Captain America run. I interviewed him about Detective Comics. And then I interviewed him about the secret adult Marshall Rogers, Steve Englehart Batman comic that was supposed to be for Star Reach Comics that I wrote an article about in back issue. They were supposed to do this adult, mature comic that was going to be the sequel to the Detective run. And
the original Laughing Fish story, or
yes, yeah. And it was going to all take place on a dirigible, on this blimp that Gotham City rich were on, and the Penguin like takes it over, and anyway.
For Star Reach, would they change the look of Batman?
So here's what happened. I saw it as a kid in Comics Journal. When I was a kid, I saw it announced in Comics Journal. It said, because I was obsessed with the Rogers, Austin, and Englehart series when it came out, because comics weren't that great right then, especially DC. It was bad. Marvel had great stuff. I was always a Marvel guy, but DC, there just weren't that many great comics, but that was fantastic. So saw that, and I always wondered about it. And I talked to Michael Urey, and I said, he has a special section like that comes up in the magazine is like, I can't remember what it's called, something like Comics That Never Were or something along those lines. And I said, I want to look into doing this thing about this project that fell through. So anyways, what it was that Star Reach, the guy who did Star Reach, the editor of Star Reach, Michael, I can't think of his name right now.
Friedrich or no?
Michael Friedrich, who I
Okay.
also interviewed for Batcave Companion. He wrote a letter to DC talking about how great the Englehart Rogers Austin series was and how it revived, Batman, and revived kind of like his faith in comic books again. And he was doing Star Reach at the time. And Steve Englehart reached out to him and said, hey, what if we did, this Batman series in Star Reach, no comics code, And so they got together and they actually got permission from Paul Levitz. And Levitz said,
really?
That's
the
shocking.
reason he said that they were going to allow it was because Star Reach had such a low circulation that they felt it wouldn't do anything to impede the image of Batman. So they could do this mature thing.
Wow.
And
this is the first Bat Dick.
Exactly. Yeah, really. And the whole thing fell through because Star Reach was black and white. Like Jim Starlin was in Star Reach, Howard Chaykin was in Star Reach.
Yeah.
But Mike didn't have the production, didn't have the money to go ahead and produce color comics.
Sure.
It was going to have to be in black and white. And Marshall Rogers insisted that it be in color. He said he wouldn't do it unless it was in color. And I know Mike said to me, because I then reached out to Mike for this article that I wrote for Back Issue. I talked to Steve and then I talked to Mike again. And Mike said it was like one of the biggest regrets he ever had. He said, I was stupid. He said, I could have taken it out alone. He said, it would have been a huge hit. I would have gotten a lot of press. He said, Star Reach would have done great after that. And all these other comic creators would have wanted it to be in Star Reach. So, anyways, it's an interesting article because it actually, some of the ideas that Marshall had for that became like this Pacific Comics portfolio of art that he did called Strange. Have you ever heard of that or seen that?
But I used to love those portfolios. Go on.
That portfolio, and we reproduced it in Back Issue, some of the images from it, because that was Steve who told me that. Were some of the concepts that he had, and he just kind of changed it to like not be Batman.
Sure.
Anyways, I thought that would have been great. But Marshall, of course, died before I could interview him. I had a scheduled interview with him.
Yeah.
And he died like a week before the interview. And I was friends with Marshall because he lived in Silver Spring. I lived in Alexandria, and he lived in Silver Spring, Maryland.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was working for video games. He was doing video games at the time. This is like the late 80s. So I knew him back then, and
how did he get sick? Like what brought him?
He had a heart attack. He was a chain smoker, and he had a heart attack, and he dropped dead from a heart attack.
Oh, jeez.
He smoked like crazy. I mean, it was just. He was literally a chain smoker. But Terry Austin came to the rescue because Terry Austin. I reached out to him, and Terry was fantastic, and he gave me all this really great personal information, and he was able to connect me with Marshall's adopted son, so that I kind of became friends with his son.
That's awesome. Is the Batcave Companion, is it still available from Tomorrow's?
Yep.
There you go,
Tomorrow's,
kids.
Amazon, but Tomorrow's, more money goes to Tomorrow's if you buy it from Tomorrow's.
Go to the website, yeah, man, and you could buy it. I'm assuming maybe you could buy it digitally. I'm not sure because I know they do it with their magazines, certainly. So.
I don't know if it's I don't think Batcave is digital.
Okay.
I don't think there's a digital version of that.
Well,
I bought a ton of Tomorrows just today because you sent out that link, Michael. I just wanted I wanted a spending spree. Super easy website.
Oh, cool! Did you get
great website?
Did you get the new book, the World of Tomorrows book?
Yep, I got that one.
Oh, I'm gonna have to get that.
Yeah, that's
great good book. To know. Those guys, John has always been incredibly kind to me. Years ago, Eric Houston wrote the podcast, the comic book podcast Companion. And this was in 2006 or 7. And I'm chapter 2, which is very
John.
Who's chapter one?
They asked
Around
me to,
Comics, another Chicago podcast. They were chapter
I'm
one.
doing that podcast next week.
John, they asked me to design that book.
Did you
And
design
What a
it?
small world. What a
turned him
small
I
world.
turned
I
him
was going to
down.
say, Mike.
I turned him down.
Well, we could have used your layout work on that. Honestly, I mean, it's fine, and I'm proud to be in a 2 hours publication. It blows my mind that I was. I don't even know if that's still around or not. It's so out of date now. It's ridiculous. Again, it was made in 2006. Comic Geek Speak is in there. I'm in there. There's a Fraction interview about, as a creator, what he thinks of comic book podcasts. I'm trying to remember the other shows.
Document now.
Huh? Yeah, I
Well,
suppose.
the ones in the middle, I remember iFanboy, Augie's show.
iFanboy's in there, absolutely. I don't remember if Augie's in there now. I hope he is. I'm not sure. I don't remember, but you're right. iFanboy is in there. So
was
maybe Indy Spinner Rack.
Yeah, Indie Spinner Rack.
Charlito and Mr. Phil, great show from back then,
and what became 11 O'Clock Comics? They did a Marvel podcast way back in the day.
Oh, right. Yes, Jason Wood and David Price, and I don't remember if Vince was on the show yet or not.
Yeah, way back in the day.
That's so funny. You're right. So yeah, there you go, man. So there's my Tomorrow's connection to Mike, of course, and then we have our boxing love to keep us warm, and our Columbo love as well.
That's right.
So
and our film noir love, right?
And indeed our film noir love.
You guys like all the best things.
That's
you
true,
are
man.
Wonderful people.
That's right. I'm interviewing this guy for the next issue of Noir City.
Who are you interviewing?
That's enough.
Oh, Tom.
Yeah.
Are you interviewing Tom for Noir City?
I am.
Yeah, I got another top 5 list. Like I got enough. All I do is watch.
Oh yeah, Not only am I interviewing him, but he's coming up with his 5 favorite noirs.
Excellent. Hey, that's great. That's outstanding, man.
It's hard. It's legit hard.
Yeah. To narrow it to 5. Well, again, like the Columbo list, it's really, really hard. So I love this tangent. I think all of this was fantastic. Mike, you were about to give us your Columbo list.
So how does this work with overlaps? Am I supposed to raise my hand and be like, I've got that too?
Yeah, we can move on.
I just wanted to, you know what? I had notes with them, and I thought we could just like run with some of this stuff, and you guys could just talk about it, because some of this stuff I picked out for specific reasons, not necessarily just because I really like the episodes, but because there's like Columbo villains, the times that a villain tried to kill Columbo, which is only 3 times.
Which is insane. That was my number 1 rule of Columbo: kill Columbo.
Yeah, right. Well, 3 tried to unsuccessfully. Okay, so I'm gonna my number 1, my top.
Oh, so you're going top down.
Well, I'm just I'm gonna.
Let's case in case of this list.
It's going to be chronological order, but my favorite first. Okay.
Okay.
Go for it.
Now You See Him with Jack Cassidy, where he's the magician, the Nazi magician.
It's the best
on
one.
On my list. Yeah.
It's the best one, man.
Okay, my favorite because Jack Cassidy, number 1. Number 2, he's an escape artist. Okay, that was how I became friends with Steranko. It was like because I loved escape artists, and it was like he's the escape artist. So,
he's an escape artist / magician / mind reader. He's every kind of magician.
He's everything. Well, Steranko did that stupid mind reading thing too.
I believe it.
He did all that shit.
Sure.
He was the guy who laid on the bed of nails, at the carnival too. Did all that crazy shit.
By the way, another reason why I love that episode, 2 reasons. They use Henry Mancini's charade, which is perfect for that episode. And also, Nehemiah Persoff is the victim.
Nehemiah Persoff's fantastic. You're talking about one of the great film noir, character actors. Persoff.
Twilight Zone, everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. His Twilight Zones. My brother wrote an article for Noir City about the noir Twilight Zones, and they featured 2 Nehemiah Persoff episodes in that.
Okay, so there's the one where he's on the ship and he's the Nazi.
He's the captain. Nazi on the ship, right?
And then I'm trying. What was the other Nehemiah?
The other
Persoff
one, I have to try to think about it.
Okay, and I want to guess some of the other noir Twilight Zones. Was it Dead Man's Shoes? Was that one of the noirs?
The one where the woman is.
Let me just study Columbo.
Yes, you're right. We're getting off track.
We are getting off track.
We're getting off track. I did some Twilight Zone study for this, but I only got like 5 in. I knew it would go this way.
Okay, all right. I'm going to start. All right, again.
Go on.
So now you see it. Number one for me.
But I have a problem. I have one problem with that episode.
Tell me.
How about the end of that one though? How great it is the way Columbo just like pulls out all of the
letters.
You know, and everybody's pulling out the letters. You know, Jack Cassidy pulls out the letter, and Jack Cassidy lights it on fire.
Did Cassidy do his own? There were a lot of magic tricks where it seemed like it was one take where they didn't cut away.
It said when I was reading the notes about that episode, it said that he had learned some of the things, like he had learned some things for that. But
was it filmed at the Magic Castle in California?
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know.
And another thing, one of my favorite things about Columbo, things that trip up the villains that are no longer part of today's society, and one of them being an electric typewriter ribbon. Right. Which has the evidence on it. Yeah, right. Sorry, sir, it was on your computer. I didn't have a chance to look at it, so I don't know how.
Okay, what's the problem you have with
this? Is my problem from a storyteller's point of view. The way they solve the crime is genius, right? It's the typewriter thing, but that's dependent on the fact that the victim is typing up the letter at the time of his death. But there's no reason for him to be typing up that letter at the time of his death, because the one scene they have, the blackmail scene beforehand, Santini agrees to be blackmailed. He said, fine, you can have 50% of my income. So it's a complete coincidence that he kills them at the exact time that he's writing.
But what if he's doing it as a backup? You know, he's going to write the letter, and he's going to have the letter, and he's going to keep it in his safe or whatever.
I totally agree with that, but it's a coincidental thing. If he had said to him, "That's it, man," like another episode I'm sure we're talking about, like 7 Columbo episodes, where he's like, "This blackmail's over tonight. I'm going to send it in," which is the worst thing you can say to a person on Columbo.
Right.
If he had said that would have made more sense that he was going back at the moment he was writing the letter. But it just happened to be coincidence that he arrived at the exact time that he was writing the letter that was about him. I don't like that one coincidence part of it. I feel like that's the one part I don't like. But besides that, perfection.
Yeah, I love that episode.
You're killing me.
It's the Nazi thing. It's the magician thing. You know, it's like the Nazi hiding, and Columbo's got to find the Nazi hiding. You know, he gets the Nazi hiding.
And the accents the guy does. And
that was great. That's in the restaurant where he's.
And that old guy that knows everything about Santini.
Yeah, he's at the rooming house. He goes to the rooming house. The guy's got the hot plate, and Columbo's complimenting the hot plate.
Yeah, Columbo's hot plate.
That's terrific. I love that. Yeah. That's wonderful. That actor was like the head of the Screen Actors Guild or something like that.
That actor is a recurring guy in Columbo. He shows up in like 10 episodes.
Really? I didn't know.
Yep.
And Robert Loggia's in it.
Robert Loggia, yes. Yeah. Scarface.
I love Robert Loggia. I love T.H.E. Cat, his wonderful 60s
That's a great old
show.
movie. Yeah. Man,
it was a show. It was a sitcom, or it was an adventure show.
That's right. That's when he was like a leading man.
Yep. I know. Can you imagine? I used to be good looking. Now I'm Robert Loggia. So next on
Okay. All
right,
so
this is great.
I might agree it's my favorite episode of all time.
It's mine. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, then we're in agreement. That's great.
I mean, that's the thing, man. I know. That's why when we were even talking on turn, it's like, oh shit, we're gonna have the same shit on this list.
Okay, Murder by the Book. Okay, I want to include that because it's the first true TV episode. Because the first 2 were actually TV movies.
That's right.
This is the first true TV episode, directed by Steven Spielberg, written by Steven Bochco, and it's about writers, which is like a continuing theme throughout Columbo. Is writers, you know.
Mystery
it's publisher perish, and then Try and Catch Me, which I want to talk about later, which is one of my favorites.
But Murder by the Book, it's Martin Miller and Jack Cassidy again.
Right. Yep.
Basically a parody of Levinson and Link, the Columbo creators in some respects.
Right. And they actually didn't write that one. I thought maybe they had written it, but Steven Bochco wrote that episode.
That's awesome. And
the best opening.
Oh yeah, that has
when he's driving.
They take out the music.
Oh, yep.
And they just do. He's in there. You just driving and just the typing. The Columbo has the best openings of any show ever, where they just throw his name up in the middle of a dramatic thing, like everything's going on. They just throw up Columbo. It just.
Now I remember when they used to be on when the show was on, and it was part of the Sunday Mystery Movie.
That's right.
Was the shuttling mystery movie. So what you had was the opening was an indiscriminate guy in the dark with a flashlight, and you had this whistling theme
Yeah.
and the flashlight would shine, and it would shine an image of Peter Falk as Columbo, or Macmillan and Wife, or Heck Ramsey,
Or McCloud.
or McCloud, which I
or
love.
another one, a lost one that's on YouTube, The
Daniel.
Snoop Sisters
Oh,
with
the
Helen
Snoop
Hayes
Sisters.
and
Yes.
Mildred Natwick. Yes, those Broadway old ladies.
The Snoop Sisters were two old women who were solving murder mysteries.
Yes, they were fantastic. So, and there's like the pilot is on there, and at least one other episode, one where Vincent Price is the bad guy. I honestly, folks, I have been scouring YouTube for movies of the week and things like the Snoop Sisters, and every time, God bless YouTube, because much like the documentary, it's there.
Banachek also was part of the Mystery Theater.
Banachek absolutely
with George Papard.
Also, Levinson and Link show.
Right.
So, no, I love that stuff, man.
Murder by the Book suffers from one thing I think some Columbo episodes suffer from, which is, again, a plot thing that bothers me. It is not clear to me if Columbo has the power to check phone records. Sometimes he has it, and sometimes he doesn't.
Right.
Like Murder by the Book could solve like that if he just checks who called the damn cabin.
Right.
If he subpoenas the phone records and figures it out. And I think there are like 2 or 3 episodes where he does that. He's like, "Well, we saw your phone records to you too." But sometimes he does, and sometimes he doesn't. It's a power that comes and goes depending on the writing. I'm just a whiny complainer of all the episodes.
Okay. No, I love these.
I love that episode. I don't know if it would have ever made my top 5, but I do love that episode for the reason.
The Spielberg part of it is brilliant. Stylist, it's gorgeous.
Yes.
He was like 28 or something.
Yeah, he was really young. I mean,
he might have even been younger than that.
I think he had made Night Gallery with Joan Crawford, the Night Gallery episode with Joan Crawford, and then he did, which I still think is one of the best things he's done, Duel.
Yeah, Duel.
The Richard Matheson, Matheson scripted thing.
Dennis Weaver Dennis Weaver is like a traveling salesman. Correct. Against a giant semi. It's one of the best intense suspense movies, I guess you'd call it. I don't know if it's not a horror movie per se, but it really is a suspenseful movie. And again, I don't know if it's on YouTube or not, but that and the original Night Stalker pilot, I think, are the 2 best movies of the week ever.
And Night Stalker, that original Night Stalker that you're talking about with the Las Vegas vampire, was for a long time the highest rated television movie in history. I mean, that was into the 80s. It was still that. It was so popular. That thing was great. Night Strangler was good too, but it wasn't as good. The second one. It's not as good as the Night Stalker. Yeah, Seattle Underground, right?
Yep. Yeah, the underground city, the part of Seattle that sank, and apparently intact.
Anything Richard Matheson writes. I mean, the Twilight Zone's best Twilight Zone episodes were written by Richard Matheson.
His adaptations of The Martian Chronicles, another great TV movie event with Rock Hudson
very good,
and Darren McGavin for that matter.
Martian Chronicles by EC Comics. The adaptations of The Martian Chronicles by EC. I think I told Tom. I may have told Tom this, but when I met Ray Bradbury, I met him. I brought my copy of the EC bound book that when I was working for Russ, the Russ Cochran stuff.
Russ Cochran, yeah.
I brought that for him to sign, and he looked at it and he goes, "Oh, this is great! Oh, thank you for bringing this," because everybody was bringing books to him, and I bring him this comic book.
Am I right? Was it The Martian Chronicles? Because I know that
it was not called The Martian Chronicles. It was called Mars is Heaven.
Oh, that specific story. Well, I just know there's an EC story with Bradbury where they adapted something without his permission.
That was it.
Okay.
That was it.
And he wrote to them and said...
He wrote the letter to them saying,
I didn't get my check yet.
I love your stuff. You do great stuff. I really enjoy it and I appreciate it, but it would be nice if you would give me some kind of credit because you're stealing my stories.
They sent him a check. I think
and then they had that agreement with him, and he was, after that, he was on the cover. It would say on the cover of the comic, it would say featuring an adaptation of a Ray Bradbury story. And he was in not just the science fiction books, but he was also in shock suspense stories, crime suspense stories, and trying to think of if there was any other ones he was in, but I know he's in those.
That's excellent.
Oh, he was in Tales from the Crypt too. They did a horror story of his also.
Oh wow. That's awesome. Okay. Man, I'll tell you, I back to Columbo, but I got to meet Bradbury in 2006 at Comic-Con,
Everybody's met Bradbury, but me.
along
I
with
get it.
and now Ray Harryhausen. They were together.
Well,
And
I
just
saw that it
walking
was
the
Ray
floor.
Harryhausen, Forrest Ackerman, and
Bradbury.
Bradbury had breakfast with them.
Wow.
It was at the Famous Monsters convention.
That's excellent, man.
And Ray and Forrest Ackerman tried to pick up my wife. We were in our 20s.
That's fantastic, man. Excellent stuff. All right, moving on. Next, Columbo.
Okay. Death Lends a Hand. I had to include a Robert Culp episode because
That's on my top 5.
And that's my favorite Robert Culp episode.
Me too.
Now, is that the
that one is written by Levinson and Link.
Okay, now that's the subliminal message one?
No.
Okay,
no.
which one is this one?
It's the private security one.
He's the private investigator, the security, the guy at the head of the security, and he's got the guy who's it's Ray Milland. Because it's got Ray Milland in it too. That's another reason it's so good.
2 Columbos with Ray Milland.
Correct. The one with
I forget her name.
The flowers.
The flowers.
Right, and
one with a toupee and one without. He went both ways.
And the woman in that is Janice Lester from the last episode of Star Trek Turnabout Intruder of the original series, who body swaps with Captain Kirk. And so Kirk is trapped in her body, and she's in Kirk's body. But and I forget her name, shamefully. But, I love the Universal television machine that literally went from the 50s to the early 90s. And that there's a great documentary about, it's called The Last Mogul, and it's all about, Lou Wasserman, the man who ran Universal until it was bought by the French company that bought Universal, and obviously now owned jointly by NBC and everything. But that machine was just incredible, and that's why we got really good TV shows with great character actors who were already under contract at Universal for film or TV. They had the access to the backlot and all the costumes and the stock footage, and that's why they could construct such amazing-looking shows. And Columbo was certainly part of that wheel. And of course he had his issues with Universal. I realize that, and rightfully so. But in terms of on Falk's side and everything. But no, I do. I love all of that. So.
Well, my mother was friends with Lou Wasserman, so take that.
Really, that's cool.
Goddamn Martian Chronicles.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Did you ever meet him, Tom?
No, I was too young. My mother's a studio executive at Warner Brothers. So, she would talk about him being sort of the old school kind of guy, and back in the day.
That's really cool. I was just reading about Lou Wasserman because I'm reading. He's in 2 books I'm reading right now. I'm reading these 2 books. One is The Long Goodbye, which is about the making of Chinatown.
I'm reading that too. I just started. I'm like quarter of the way through.
Amazing book.
So good.
Sam Wasson, who we just interviewed in the last issue of North City that I sent you, Tom. Vince Keenan interviewed him, so we had that interview with him up front in that issue. And then the other thing that Wasserman is in the biography I'm reading about Marlon Brando called The Contender.
Oh yeah, how's that?
Excellent. It's great.
Excellent.
It's like 700 pages, so I'm like 40% through it.
Scott Iman's John Wayne biography. Anybody else read that?
I've read that one. Yeah, got on the shelf back there.
And I read Spencer Tracy. I forget who wrote it, but that was a big hurts when you put it on your lap to read biography. And I can't remember who wrote it, but that was incredible as well years ago. About 10 years ago, I remember reading that. So, all right, back to your list. Robert Culp was amazing as a Columbo.
What I like about that episode is he's the Columbo villain I hate the most.
That particular
episode.
Wasn't that always the case with Culp and Columbo?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah,
they were always at odds, and they were definitely at odds in that one. He's the most despicable.
He's despicable,
and yet
he kills the woman just by hating her because he gets so angry.
And it has that great scene with the glasses.
Yeah, with the glasses going.
With the glasses, the way they shot that one, it's like they decided to go innovative with this, one segment.
Random
it's like, wow. It's like, damn.
I'm a big fan of the subliminal message one as well.
That was a good one.
And the football one with
the
Dean
football
Stockwell.
one with
Yes,
Dean
football.
Stockwell is excellent. But I had to pick one of them. That's my favorite of the
Fair
bunch
enough.
because
Go ahead. The subliminal message one is one of my favorite alibis because he's on the fucking stage.
Right.
They're literally looking at him, but he's not there because he's just in the dark, and he leaves a little recording of himself and walks out.
And
like
again,
alibi is like everybody's staring at him.
And then again, old technology that obviously wouldn't fly today if you tried to write a story like that.
Right.
Right. You accepted for then. So what else?
Okay, Etude in Black. Of
Classic
course,
Cassavetes.
Yeah,
and Cassavetes directed some of that episode.
Really?
Yes. It's
Wow.
uncredited, but he directed some of that episode. Well, he and Falk, of course, that there's that link between not only being friends, but Falk was in just about all of his movies.
Yeah.
At least all of his movies in the 60s and 70s.
Husbands and Wives, Chinese Bookie, right?
Right. No, I don't think he's in Chinese Bookie,
Maybe
but he's in Woman Under the Influence. I believe.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
So, and something else that was interesting is that Gwyneth Paltrow, Blythe Danner, who plays his wife, she was pregnant with Gwyneth Paltrow when they were filming that episode.
Wow.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah.
And Myrna Loy is
Loy's a grandmother in that
Danner's
one.
mom. Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course Myrna Loy is also in one of my favorites, which is Swan Song with Johnny Cash.
Excellent. No, that's not Myrna Loy. E1 if you're scoring.
Oh, it's Ida Lupino. I'm sorry,
Ida Lupino, but that's all right, man. No.
Right, Ida Lupino.
And I'm glad you met. And I'm sure Swan Song is on your list. So
that's on my list. You want to talk about one that's kind of outrageous? Johnny Cash jumping out of a car, out of a prop plane. Okay,
but amazing acting performance in that one. Seriously,
yes.
Look,
so good.
Don't underestimate Johnny Cash as an actor because he was in a noir. He was in a great noir called The Door-to-Door Killer.
Really, I never heard
that. Look at that.
We wrote about it in Noir City. That's the only reason I know about it. Jay Kingston wrote this great article about that movie. I think it's on YouTube. So
I was going to ask, okay, if it's on YouTube, because the great thing about Prime, and I understand film purists like
it's on Prime too. It's on Prime also.
Because yeah, man, Hillary Barta. Do you know Mike? Do you know Hillary?
Yeah, I do.
Because Hillary's a big Noir City guy.
Yes.
I know when the festival comes to town here in Chicago, he usually goes. And it was so funny. Years ago, I was doing as an adjunct to Word Balloon, I'd do Scene Missing podcasts, and I would talk to my buddies that were film buff fans, and Hillary's one of them. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you got to see it. It's on Amazon. No, don't see it on Amazon because it's terrible. You should see it on the big screen. I'm like, yeah, but Hill, what if you're in, buttfuck whatever state, and they don't have...
What if you're in a pandemic, okay? All right?
It never happened.
Here we are. So yeah, man. No, that's good. That's excellent, man. No, I really want to see again the name of that movie.
Door-to-Door Killer.
Door-to-Door Killer, Johnny Cash. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I think Cash does a good job, and
he does do a good job.
It's
outrageous. The whole thing about him jumping out of the plane, I always thought was a little on the outrageous side. But
John Randolph is the old army guy that he washed out as a pilot.
John Randolph.
No, I love that one. That's great.
Great ending with that one.
Yeah,
where
another one.
Like,
there was another one where Columbo bonded with the killer.
Yeah, those are great.
So
one of my favorites is another one like that, and I'll leave it at that until I'll see if it's on your list, and if not, then I'll certainly jump in with it.
Okay, saying a lot of the good ones.
Yeah, man. No. I love this. Go on, Mike.
All right, so Requiem for a Falling Star. Okay, that's the one with Ann Baxter.
Okay. That's interesting. I'm like,
now I included that one because it's got the old Hollywood people. It's got Kevin McCarthy in it. It's got Ann Baxter in it. It's directed by Richard Quine, who was a film noir director. He directed he directed The Pushover with Kim Novak and Frederick Murray.
I love The Pushover. God
great
damn,
movie.
Great.
Yep. No, Richard Quine's amazing.
So,
is that the one with Edith Head?
Yes, that is the one with Edith Head, and I had to do that for the North City editor, my buddy Vince Keenan, because he said if you do not include that, he's going to be really pissed at me. So.
And Martin Sheen, is Martin Sheen the victim?
No.
That's the makeup one, the Martin Sheen one.
That's right.
Yeah, that's
yes,
the one.
yes.
Yeah, which I did not include. That's not on my list.
Yeah,
I figured maybe one of you guys would include it. That's
not one of mine.
So that one. The next one is A Stitch in Crime with Leonard Nimoy. Because
that's on my list, top 5.
In my opinion, Leonard Nimoy is the greatest villain of all of the villains on Columbo.
I would put him in a tie with Dick Van Dyke.
And the Dick Van Dyke one is excellent.
I put him in a tie with someone who you're going to mention later, a certain mystery.
Robert Conrad. Robert
no,
Conrad's
it's not
the other
Robert
guy.
Conrad.
That's on my list.
It's a female.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay.
But I totally agree on Nimoy, man. Nimoy is fantastic in that.
He's great, and it's one of the few times you ever see Columbo lose his cool. When he pounds the desk and starts yelling at him.
Yeah. When he's laughing at him and stuff. Yeah, and he's like, yeah, bullshit, pal. I know you did it. I just can't figure it out yet, but I'm going to get you. And it is so beautiful. And Will Gere is great in it as the old doctor. And is it Anne?
That's right.
And Honey West.
Honey West, that's right. Anne Francis.
Anne Francis. So about 10 years after Honey West, still hot as ever. That's, man, again, great character actors in that one. Great story. And I mean, just the flip side of Mr. Spock in that one, because he is cold and calculating in that one.
Yeah.
And probably my favorite gotcha ending, when he's surrounded by all the doctor's surrounded, and he gets in a fight with everybody, and Columbo has to search everybody to see which of them has the evidence on him. And Columbo realizes the only person that could have the evidence is Columbo himself, because that's the person who shouldn't have it. And he reaches in his pocket, and the evidence is there.
And that
move, so brilliant.
And Nimoy he thinks he gets away with it. He's back in his office, and he's like puts his hand in his hair like this, and it's like, he thinks he's gotten away with it. So it's a great ending.
Absolutely, man. No, it's one of my favorites. Next,
that's one is any old port in a storm.
Oh, it's another one.
Pleasant.
You've named 4 of my top 5.
Oh yeah,
that would be probably my number 2 favorite, all-time favorite.
Mr. Carsini.
Because that was really truly it's also Peter Falk's favorite episode, all-time favorite episode. That was the one where he finally really bonded with the killer. I mean, there was a true bond with them, and that ending scene with them in the car is really great, I thought.
Oh, God. The whole thing, man, the way that the secretary, kind of is about to blackmail Carsini.
Julie Harris plays the secretary.
That's right, Julie Harris. Of course it was. Oh, and was it Gary Conway that was his older?
Gary Conway, who was I Was a Teenage Frankenstein.
And, of course, 2001? Wasn't he?
No, that's Gary Lockwood.
Oh, excuse me. Gary Lockwood, of course.
Gary Conway was I Was a Teenage
Nerds.
Frankenstein. And it's like
great movie.
And he wrote for Marvel Comics for many years.
That's Jerry Conway.
Oh my God, it's so embarrassing.
Outstanding, man. You're killing me.
I wish we could show a picture of Gary Conway
in Teenage Frankenstein.
That
makeup is crazy. That makeup is really, really crazy. It is. I remember seeing that.
John, I talked to you about this before the last time I was on. We need to just do a podcast just about classic horror.
Oh, fuck yeah. Absolutely, man.
Do about classic horror, because I did a classic horror movie magazine with my brother,
I know.
It's still running.
Well, and Famous your horror magazine still running?
Yeah, I left it. My brother left it, but it's kind of at the end. But yeah, it's
okay. Because I remember seeing ads for Teenage Frankenstein in Famous Monsters.
Yeah, well, and also, you could get the Super 8 version of that. I had a Super 8 projector when I was a kid, and I had the 20-minute, digest versions of movies.
My friend had Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman.
Oh yeah, and all it had in it was the fight. That's all they had time for.
Yes,
they didn't have time for anything else but the fight between.
Bela Lugosi's Frankenstein with Lon Chaney, all duking it out. Absolutely.
Here's the thing that you didn't know. All right, Tom's already getting bored.
No, I'm not getting bored. That's fascinating to me. So, you guys have fantastic taste. I follow you, and then I steal from you and put it in comics and make money. This is the best formula anyone's ever had for making cash.
When am I getting my check for this?
Oh my God! Yeah, sure. I already donate to John. You got a Patreon too? What the fuck, man?
You're doing my interview. That's your pay.
Oh, that's my pay, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh my God. All right.
The thing about Bela Lugosi, do you know in that movie, he was supposed to speak, and he was supposed to speak with Igor's voice because Bela Lugosi was Igor.
Well, that's Ghost of Frankenstein.
Um,
That's not Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman.
right, but Bela Lugosi played the monster in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman,
Right.
and he's blind. He's supposed to be blind in it.
No. You're confusing the two movies. I'm going to throw a flag down.
This is a fight. All right, it's going down.
Because Ghost of Frankenstein is Igor's in that, and it's the.
I know. No. You're not.
Oh, I'm not letting you
the
talk.
brain.
Go ahead.
The brain of Tom's really going to get confused here. The brain
I'm just
of
waiting for you guys
Igor
to go at it.
gets put into the brain of the monster. So Bela Lugosi was going to speak in it, and because Bela Lugosi, as the monster in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, was going to speak like Igor, because he was Igor.
I'm sorry, that still Ghost of Frankenstein. I promise you.
No. I'm telling you. No, you're not right about this.
All right, we're gonna.
John, you're not right about that.
God bless you, son. I'll look it up, and I'm happy.
Put some money on it and look it up.
No. Ghost of Frankenstein features Lon Chaney Jr. as the monster.
Right.
And Bela Lugosi is Igor.
Right. And it ends with, all right, first I'm going to look up Frankenstein.
Igor dies in that one.
Right.
In Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, okay? Bela Lugosi plays the monster.
Right.
Igor is dead.
Right.
In that movie, Bela Lugosi, as the monster, was going to have Igor's brain. So in the movie, in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, he's going to talk. They cut this out.
I believe Michael is winning.
He was going to be blind, and he was going to talk like Igor because he had Igor's brain.
You're right about that. Because I remember at the end of Ghost of Frankenstein, you hear Igor's voice, even though it's that's
Lon Chaney. That's
Lon Chaney Jr. But you hear Igor at the end of that thing, and I thought it was him blind at the end of that movie.
And then it was going to continue in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman.
I do see that. You're right. Okay.
As Bela Lugosi playing the monster. So, and he was going to be blind throughout the movie. So when you watch that fight between them, and Bela Lugosi's like this, and he it looks like he can't see what he's doing. It's because he's blind. And then they decided that when they were going to cut the movie and edit the movie, we're just going to edit this out. We don't want him being blind, and we don't want him talking either.
That's hilarious. Because you're right. And then
ridiculous.
And I will. I mean, again, all right. Now I see the plot of Ghost, and they say that Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman was after Ghost of Frankenstein. But now I want to look up Ghost of Frankenstein because I remember it at the end. The monster speaking with Igor's voice.
Absolutely, you're right. But all I was saying was that in Bela Lugosi played the character.
Now I'm with you.
Yeah, where he's talking because he's got Igor's brain. This is ridiculous. I'm sure no one gives a shit.
Bullshit.
As they're talking about
here's Wayne commenting Abbott and Costello meet insert Universal Monster here. He's absolutely right.
Here's this idiot nerd talking about like horror movies, and arguing about horror movies.
This is all great. And again, tangents are welcome on Word Balloon. Always. Tom knows that. You know that. So don't even apologize.
Could not love it more.
This is the best.
The most relaxed I felt in weeks.
I mean, honestly, this is the kind of conversation we'd be having at a convention after hours. And usually in the middle of it, I'd be like, as it was said in Seinfeld, this should be the show. This should absolutely be the show. All right, Mike, next on your Columbo list, because I love that pleasant song.
Swan Song was my next one, which is the one with Johnny Cash.
Yep.
So then the next one is An Exercise in Fatality with
Conrad.
Robert Conrad, because I think Robert Conrad is one of the all-time. First of all, it's a great episode.
We just lost him this year, right before the virus.
Oh man, look, when I was a kid, I didn't like the Batman TV show. I wasn't a fan. I liked the first 2 episods, but I wasn't a fan.
First 2 episodes are
good. Neither. I like the cartoon parts.
First season,
yes,
which was the first 20 seconds.
Yes, and I did not like. It's, to be honest with you, one of the reasons I wrote. I wanted to do the Batcave Companion was because I wanted Neil to get the credit that he deserved for bringing Batman back to what Bill Finger created.
Yeah.
So I never liked. When I was a kid, and Frank Miller brought this up in the documentary. I thought that was great. What Frank was talking about was all we knew and all that the media and people outside of comics knew about Batman and comics in general was the camp side of it, and that it was for kids. And I thought the Batman TV show perpetuated that. So I never liked it as a comic book fan and a guy who loved Batman and loved Neil Adams and Jim Apato's Batman. I mean, I just never liked that TV show. So, but I love Wild Wild West. And for me,
James West.
Wild Wild West was more of what Batman should have been than the Batman TV show.
It was steampunk James Bond before there was such a phrase as steampunk.
Yeah, I mean, I know the James Bond connection is really there. It's more of a James Bond thing, but you know, and Robert Conrad was too short to play Batman.
But I love the inventiveness of 19th century gadgetry to explain the secret agent motif.
Oh yeah,
and it was this. I mean, it was genre blending before there was genre blending.
So I saw you were doing a rewatch of it when Robert Conrad died. If I've seen the really shitty movie, but
let's not talk about that.
It's so bad. But
Let's
like
embarrassingly bad.
How do you dive into Wild Wild West? Is it you have to like start with the pilot and keep going, or
I would the first
top 10 episodes?
In my opinion, the first season is still the best. The black and white
season.
The first season is the best because even though the ratings continued to be good throughout, I think it was running a little dry of like stuff after a while. They were kind of like recirculating things over and over again. But that first season is really, really good. And
just watch the first season straight through is the best way.
That's what I would do. And in fact, if you can find, and I think they're still available.
John's shrugging. Now I have YouTube.
No, I got no problem with what he's saying. I'll give my opinion in a second. Sure.
Well, I mean, I love the color episodes too.
That's what I'm saying.
They're good. But I just think that you should start with the first season because my favorite is the first season.
It is grittier. It gets a little more tongue in cheek. Not as campy as Man from Uncle got. And I love Man from Uncle. But now that I would say stick with the first season. That's the best stuff as far as Uncle goes. And I'm with you that I do agree. I think the black and white stuff is fantastic. But I think there were a lot of good. There
were.
Jonathan Winters was a great bad guy. Of course, I mean Michael Dunn as Miguelito Loveless throughout the run was incredible.
You know that Dunn and Conrad were best friends.
Who and Conrad were best friends?
Michael Dunn.
Oh, that's awesome! I did not know that.
They were best friends, and Michael Dunn did all of his own stunts, like Robert Conrad.
That's fantastic. And Tom, I don't know if you know two things. Michael likely knows the show was canceled because the Nixon administration really clamped down on the network, saying, "Hey, you guys are getting too sexy and too violent. Tone it down."
Yeah, it was too violent.
And literally, that's the reason why Wild Wild West was canceled. It wasn't because of any falling ratings or anything like that. And that's one of the reasons why Gunsmoke became more of a sedate drama than the shoot 'em up show that it was in its black and white days.
Right.
And it kind of, I mean, they're interesting, but as far as the Gunsmoke ones go. But no, I think Wild Wild West, it's a Western procedural. I mean, honestly, I think you can, if you happen to see it like channel surfing, dip into the episode. You'll be fine.
You don't have to watch just the first scene. But my highest recommendation is the first scene. And I'll tell you what's really fascinating is if you've got the DVD set for the first season.
I don't have a DVD player, you old man.
Oh, shit. You're kidding.
Columbo on Amazon Prime.
Don't they have commercials? Don't they have commercials?
It's awful. Except for the first season, they all have commercials. Yeah, you can buy the first. You can buy the first season, but the rest you have to watch horrible Amazon commercials.
Well,
where's this on Amazon Prime?
On Amazon Prime.
Yeah, but it's just at the beginning for 2 seconds.
No. Throughout it's if you watch Columbo on Amazon Prime, there's no way to buy it and just get commercial free.
Get the hell! Oh, maybe it's on
at the commercial breaks, like little 30-second.
Maybe it's on
Amazon. Dude.
Maybe it's through that.
Spend $100 and buy a DVD or Blu-ray player, okay? And
what are you talking about? What?
Listen, that first season.
My mother invented DVD. It's not 2006.
It's true. You're killing me. Man,
the Criterion collection. Come on,
there's a Criterion channel.
There is a Criterion,
but the Criterion channel doesn't have all those movies. Don't have all the extras that those DVD and Blu-rays have.
You make a good point.
Now you're making me sad.
That was my point about that the first season is that Robert Conrad is part of that entire thing. He introduces each episode, and then he does a voiceover track along with a couple of the producers and a couple of the writers talking about the episode.
I'm gonna have to buy that.
And
now,
then
I
it
would
has
love to hear that.
documentaries all about the making of the show, and it has like extras, including like the times they were like on the Mike Douglas show and being interviewed, and they were on Dick Cavett, and it's just loaded with all kinds of stuff. They didn't do it for the second season or any of the other seasons, but the first season they did that.
I want to acknowledge Bill DeSimone's comment about Assignment Vienna. Now, I don't know that project.
Yeah, I've never seen that, but I remember I lived in Miami, and he did a movie called Murph the Surf, which was about the heist guy.
Murph the Surf.
Yeah, the heist guy, and that was a pretty good movie. It was entirely filmed in Miami in the 70s.
Wayne is blowing my mind with this observation. It'd be interesting if Alan Moore would link the Wild Wild West with the Man from U.N.C.L.E. the way he did with League of Extraordinary
Yeah,
Gentlemen.
right. Yeah,
I got no problem with that. You know, a bad show.
Robert Conrad also was a boxer.
Absolutely, he was a boxer, and you see it in that episode.
He had 5 pro fights.
Yeah, no, he was and Chicago guy. Grew up in Chicago.
Exactly, he was a Chicago guy.
Oh yeah, and I, and again,
Worlds colliding.
he had the craziest internet radio show where he would take fan calls.
Did you ever listen to that? Really?
Absolutely, I did.
Oh, what was that like? It
was weird because he would play old middle of the road music like Perry Como and like beautiful music, like that kind of era.
He also played G. Gordon Liddy.
I didn't remember that.
He played him in the miniseries when G. Gordon Liddy came out with his autobiography.
Yeah,
Will. It was the miniseries Will, and Robert Conrad plays G. Gordon
I didn't
Liddy.
remember that. I bet that's on YouTube. He would take fan calls, and literally it would they'd play the Wild Wild West music coming in and out of commercials. Bob, I loved you on Wild Wild West. He talked to old peer celebrities. I remember one episode. There's a podcast feed of the show.
Oh,
I think you can still access if you search for it.
I have asked this to you while walking, but you can't answer because you're just a podcast. So I'm going to ask it to you in person.
Talk to me.
Do you just consume media 24 hours a day? Is there any time you're not things
Tom,
are going in?
Honestly, my former colleagues on sports radio would call me a vidiot, and they'd say you're a vidiot savant, and I am. I have trouble with my taxes. I'm a poor businessman, and all that said. But what I've got locked in my head, I really do. I have this weird. I'm not quite from Taxi. The beautiful woman, Nato.
Oh yes, who was on the Trump show? Who was on
and what Trump show? I didn't know. Oh, was she on the Apprentice? She
was on the Celebrity Apprentice.
Okay, she
Mary
Lou Henner.
Mary Lou Henner, yes.
Attaboy. She literally has a photographic memory. I can remember every day of her life and tell you what she was doing, and
that's crazy.
It's insane.
There's like 4. I know this because I listened to her interviews at WTF, but she was on the Trump show and she has the photographic memory. She could tell us some fucking stories, but she doesn't.
I don't know, when I hear a great line or I remember a great piece of film or television, it's locked in my brain, man, and it's decades later and I can still remember this crap. It's sad. It's my superpower. It's completely useless. So that's why I'd be excellent on the Legion of Substitute Superheroes, and I would be the Vidiot. That would be my name.
A Vidiot.
You should get into a situation with me and my brother sitting and talking about comics, movies, and music.
Mike, that's why when we do a podcast, we stay on the phone for like another hour.
This guy and I are sitting and talking for like an hour and a half before we even start the podcast, and we've run and we've already like run out of the best stuff.
It's true. It's totally true. So you're killing me. And by the way, before we leave Robert Conrad, a horrible James Bond knockoff TV show that he did in the 80s after Baba Black Sheep. It was called A Man Called Sloan. There are episodes. There are episodes on YouTube. He had a partner, another agent, a black gentleman who had a cybernetic arm. It is great cheese. It is honestly, guys. I will send you the link. I'll send
where
you.
Rob Liefeld got it all from, man. He just
Morgan Fairchild's a guest star on it. It's fantastic.
My wife, Morgan Fairchild.
Yes, all right, Tommy Flanagan or whatever his name was. All right, next, Michael.
All right, next is Negative Reaction.
There you go, Dick Van Dyke.
There's Dick Van Dyke, yeah.
And I have to say, one of the most unsympathetic murder victims on any Columbo ever. I mean,
victim?
she had to come to her.
Oh my goodness!
Right,
the wife.
She had to come.
I don't even remember the actress or the character.
she is pestering him, and she treats him like shit. I mean, she's just like the ultimate shrew. It's horrible.
You're not Laura Petrie.
Far from it.
Or Hope Lang, for that.
He has a really good plan in that, to have him to kidnap someone, but also be the kidnapper at the same time.
Yeah, and then the shooting, and it was like in a junkyard, right? He's at the junkyard, and he shoots himself in the leg, and the bum is sleeping there, and he hears the whole thing. And then Columbo goes to like the homeless shelter.
It is Vito
and
Scotti,
the nun thinks that he's homeless.
That's right.
He's wearing that jacket.
You poor
he's
man.
Like, come on in my.
We have a lovely sport coat that I think would fit you. It's Joyce Van Patten as the nun.
Right. That's right.
That's a great Vito Scotti, who plays. I think that's how you say his last name. Who plays the homeless bum that witnesses it all?
Oh, really? Okay.
He is one, and he's in a ton of the Columbos in little scenes. I can't remember the
one. Yeah.
He's the funeral director, and I can't remember what the main plot was. But Columbo comes to a funeral to question somebody, and Scotty's trying to sell him a funeral plan.
I'm trying to remember that one.
I remember that scene, but I don't remember which one it was. Yeah.
Those are the ones.
How about Timothy Carey showing up as the guy from the diner with the chili?
I don't remember the name Timothy Carey, but I always love the diner. That's back in the Carsini episode with Donald Pleasance.
That's in the Shatner episode. He's running the store in the Shatner episode.
Oh, yeah, he's running the store, yes.
He's running the store. And of course, if you watched Crime
Wave. With the chili, yeah.
If you watch Crime Wave on Noir Alley, or if you watch The Killing on Noir Alley, of course, Timothy Carey is great in both of those movies. He's a nut.
Yeah, he's a crazy actor, man. That guy had an energy to him. That was, yeah.
What was the name of the movie that he directed? The World's Greatest Sinner. The World's Greatest Sinner. It made its debut on TCM. His son actually put it together. One of the craziest films. He plays this charlatan preacher who has has overtones of a face in the crowd. It's a crazy film. Crazy. World's Greatest Sinner. It probably is on YouTube.
He is. It's very bizarre in that Shatner episode because he has no role to play. He's just the diner guy complaining about chili.
He gets hit over the head.
Yeah,
he gets knocked out.
That's awesome, man. That's fantastic.
Because he could have been a killer. He had such a weird energy.
I know.
What's our next one then?
Okay, Troubled Waters.
Great one.
This is
the cruise ship.
This is the cruise ship, and first of all, I love that episode because it's just he's out of his element, and I had to tie in with comic books with this one because that one always made me think of what Denny O'Neil said about what he told me about Secret of the Waiting Graves. I said, well, tell me about Secret of the Waiting Graves. And it's like, because Neil Adams didn't like the story, that was like their first story together. And I said, it's like a horror story. And he goes, yeah. He said, you know what I wanted to do? I knew, I think he said he knew that Neil was going to do it, that this was going to be the start of something different, even though he had written a few detective comics before that, Batman stories. He said, but I wanted to do it as a horror story, but I wanted to take Batman out of Gotham City, and I wanted him with just the clothes on his back, totally out of his element. He doesn't have any of his equipment. He doesn't have anything except for his wits and whatever is around him. And that's kind of what Columbo did, because if you think about it, Columbo doesn't have any of his, any aids from the LAPD. And the whole thing with the glove, the way he does the fingerprints with the lead, with the lead of the pencil, and how he times everything that the killer is going to do.
Down the stairs. Yeah.
And again, great character actors. Bernard Fox is the captain.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get on the boat. It's a ship, Lieutenant. Good. And Dean Stockwell again.
And the key to that episode is this is the episode that definitively proves that the wife exists, right? That the wife is not.
Yes.
Because if the wife doesn't exist, then Columbo is an insane person in that episode.
Going back to that Conrad episode, when he's talking to her about, all right, everybody's coming over for dinner. Who's coming over? All right, Bobby and the twins. All right, and Sheila.
That's right.
And he's like, all right, what should we get? I got an idea. Chinese food. He goes, you call it in. I'll pick it up. It'll be fine. And it's this great Bob Newhart one-sided conversation. And he's like, all right, I'm hanging up. And he's like, you can keep talking, but I'm hanging up.
Well, there's one like that also in Requiem for a Falling Star when he's so taken by seeing Ann Baxter. He's talking to his brother-in-law.
Oh, his brother-in-law. That's right.
I got to rewatch this one. Go on.
And he's on the phone with his brother-in-law, and he says, he wants his wife because his wife is a big fan of Ann Baxter. And the brother-in-law is there. And the brother-in-law doesn't believe him. And he has to put Ann Baxter on the phone talking to the brother-in-law so that she believes him.
That's outstanding. Seriously, man.
But does he have kids? Because I was watching one episode today where he's like, "Oh, my wife couldn't get a sitter."
Yes, I remember that. I remember him saying that. So
I don't remember that. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't, because again, he would obviously make up shit, for the villain or whatever, sometimes. And now I'll tell you, all the time.
Everything he says is made up.
There's a '90s episode where Rest in Peace, Mrs. Columbo, and it's a crap episode.
Yeah, right.
But I do like the way it ends because it has another phone call with the.
Well, how about the one also? And this isn't on my list, but how about the one where the police commissioner is the killer?
I love that.
He does the
swap.
My
God!
Okay, that's a great episode.
Oh.
He does the swap, but
the
way he ends up getting the guy is he rents the apartment and he's pulling the drawer. These are my socks.
Yeah,
my underwear, my pajamas.
And that guy, the crook that the police commissioner is trying to implicate, I can't remember that actor's name.
He's in a couple of Columbos.
Oh, yes, and also. He's the crooked alderman in the John Belushi movie Continental Divide.
He's in Black Caesar too, which my brother just wrote about in the new North City.
Yes, he is. A Fred Williamson movie, absolutely. I love that. Man, Fred Williamson, Mike, we got to do a Noir City thing, an evening with Fred Williamson.
Oh,
and do all this great
Didn't I tell you about the time I met Fred Williamson? I sat down and talked to him.
Go ahead.
I'm at this horror movie convention in New Jersey with my brother, okay? And we were representing our magazine, our horror movie magazine.
Sure.
And we had a table next to Fred Williamson. And no one's talking to Fred Williamson. He's there by himself. And I said to my brother, I said, man, no one's talking to Fred Williamson. This is my chance to go talk to Fred Williamson. I was kind of nervous. It's fucking Fred Williamson. And I said, I'm going to go talk to him. I said, but I'm not going to talk to him about movies. I'm going to talk to him about football. So sure enough, I went over and started talking, and we started talking about the AFL. And I started talking to him about being with the Kansas City Chiefs, and that's the entire conversation was just about him playing for the Chiefs and the time he intercepted Joe Namath and ran it back for a touchdown, and how pissed off he was that Joe Namath got all this credit for wearing white shoes when he wore white shoes before Joe Namath ever did.
Interesting.
So we just sat. We didn't talk about movies. We just sat and talked about football.
I bet he loved that. That's excellent. I met him at a fight. At a boxing match. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't a boxing match. It was actually a street fight. No, it was a boxing match at the International Amphitheater, one of the old venues.
Do you know which one it was? What
no, it was a Univision card. Jorge Paez was there, but he didn't fight. But he was there.
I like Paez.
It was fun fighter to watch. Absolutely. So yeah, but he was not. He didn't fight on the card, and it was a nothing Univision card.
Oh, okay.
Either 89 or 90, very early when I was just starting to write for Boxing Illustrated and Ring. And I spoke to him, and he really was, he had the dagger eyes just shooting at me. He was tolerant, and he was cool. And I'm like, God, it's great to see you here, man. He said, well, I'm a big fight fan. And basically all right, now leave. And I did. But I have a friend who's very big in the autograph business. But I'm always like, God, it would be great to do an event. And really, you should talk to Eddie about this. But it would be great to do like a couple of his best, kind of crime movies and stuff of the early 70s and get him to talk,
that would be great. I think I caught him just right because from what I hear, he could be a pretty gnarly guy to be around. But I guess I caught him in a good mood or I talked to him about the right thing.
Right. I mean, that's likely so. But yeah, I mean, he's a mountain of a man. I mean, he's still a scary, imposing man.
He was intimidating. Now this was like 15 years ago.
I understand, buddy. Well, my encounter was 30 years ago. How you doing, everybody? Jesus, it was like 89 or 90. Holy Christ. Wayne is asking, and also John Source is saying too that Mrs. Columbo, Kate Mulgrew, quick
Horrible
side.
TV show.
Yeah, and that's too bad. And thankfully, Kate Mulgrew rose above it.
Yeah, she's a good actress, but
She's
that
a
was a
great
terrible
actress.
TV show.
Yeah.
I heard
It's like,
nothing good about it, so I never tried it.
how the hell was Peter Falk married to her? Or Columbo, I should just say.
Right.
Columbo.
Well, it made no sense. I mean, they had the dog. I love the dog, by the way. The Beagle's excellent.
Dog.
Donald Pleasance. Do you know Donald Pleasance was one of the killers in that series?
On Mrs. Columbo.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, again, it was a Universal show. They tried.
Again, Mr. King, this is a DVD set. Oops. Okay. And it has extras. And the extras, it has the episodes of Mrs. Columbo.
That's right. I forgot about that. It does have Mrs. Columbo.
I don't have John living with me constantly, despite my asking him to. But so when I watch on Amazon, I click on the site and it tells me who all the actors are in the scene, which helps for us non-vidiots to enjoy.
That's true.
So I can communicate with you. So
I would be in your ear every day.
Wait, Michael, I got to show you something because I heard John say about autographs. Look what I got. I got a Peggy Cummings autograph.
Wow.
Nice.
Look at that.
Boy, that's fantastic, man.
That's beautiful. Purchase. I need to pull out my book that she autographed. She autographed the book for me.
Man, Mauricio,
the gun crazy book I did.
I appreciate you,
which I've read and is fantastic. If anyone's looking for a good book,
that's a great book. Our new book, the new book we got coming out about the 30 screenwriters that is at the printer right now. That's going to be really good.
I'll be first in line.
I was talking over you. What book do you?
Eddie's publishing firm, Blackpool Productions. The latest book is Scoundrels and Spitballers, about 1930s movie script writers.
Fantastic.
And it's written by Philippe Garnier, who wrote the biography that we published and that I was able to design about David Goodis.
Which I have on my desk.
Yes, I gave that to Tom last time I saw it.
That's beautiful, man. Very cool.
So that's at the printer. So that'll be coming out soon.
Where can people find Eddie's books? Online.
Amazon, think
obviously,
the TCM store has the Gun Crazy book, but also if you order it directly from blackpoolproductions.com, which I designed that website too. So you can get that book. You can get the Goodest book. You'll be able to get the Screenwriter's book. And also, Tom has this too, the postcard set that we did of Belgium film noir movie posters. They're all Eddie's movie posters. And we created this postcard set with Eddie wrote really cool comments on the back about the films. And then I designed it like Belgium chocolates. So the packaging is like a Belgian chocolates thing.
You can't see my office because it's on the other side, but I have a wall of those going all the way up, and the whole wall is decorated with the postcards.
That's cool.
And they fall off when I run on my stupid treadmill back there, so I constantly put them back.
Hilarious.
Wait,
I got them. This is great audio content for you.
I love all of this. This is fantastic.
There you go.
Oh,
wow.
Telling you. Oh, that's pretty. Yeah, it's so pretty.
Seriously, man, the covers that and Mike, are you because really both for and am I right? Is the magazine called Noir City? Forgive me.
Noir City is the name.
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
magazine.
okay.
Yeah, it's an e-mag.
Yeah, that magazine and Ringside Seat also an e-mag. Beautiful painted covers. They look amazing. Are you doing those? Are you commissioning people?
Well, most of the covers I'm designing and creating in Photoshop. Like the one Gene Tierney was like a digital painting that I worked on.
The Gene Tierney one was amazing, by the way. I love that one.
Laura.
Yeah, that's a good article by my brother. I'm gonna give
Great
props
movie.
to my brother.
It was just on a night or two ago on TCM. I am jonesing. Xfinity raised the price of TCM, and I'm like, F you, I already spent enough money on you. And I know HBO Max is coming. If HBO Max does not include a TCM component, I'll eat the $10. But I'm just like, Xfinity, I'm already paying through the nose. I don't need another $10 for you. You know, it's ridiculous.
Number one watch station in my house. So.
Yeah, I love that. Oh
God,
God, I'm jonesing. I'm on terrible old movie withdrawals because of it. Thank God for Amazon Prime.
I was just watching. Eddie did on Twitter. He did a video talking about the virtual TCM Film Festival that they're doing.
Yeah, started tonight.
Yeah. So
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, and it's going to wrap up with The Setup,
Oh,
the greatest boxing movie ever made.
Yeah, absolutely, Robert Ryan. You're damn right, man. I love that movie. God, I can't tell you, and I don't know about you, Mike. I can't tell you how many cards I've witnessed that absolutely are like the setup in terms of just being a bunch of 6 rounders, 8 rounders, maybe a 10 rounder, but more likely not. And Ernie Terrell, the former heavyweight contender, was promoting those kinds of shows on the south side of Chicago, like suburbs.
That's cool.
For years.
And Ernie Terrell, also recording artist.
Did Ernie sing? Because I know his sister Jean replaced Diana Ross in the Supremes.
Yeah, no, Ernie had an act. He had a pretty successful act.
I didn't know that. I took Ernie to lunch and made him tell me all of his
that's
stories
cool.
fighting Ali and everything that he was willing to tell me. And it wasn't a lot. I mean, man, I knew a lot of those IBC guys before they passed away, and they took a lot of those stories to the grave with them. They really did.
You know, those 6 rounders that you're kind of talking about are on Showbox that Steve Farhood hosts. And Steve Farhood, I want to say now, Steve Farhood is now writing for Ringside Seat.
Hey, that's great! Congratulations.
He's got a column in every issue.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Where he's doing the top 10 of things. So in this first column, it's the top 10 worst decisions he's both witnessed at ringside and on TV.
That's fantastic. Today I was on the sports radio station The Score because yesterday, as I'm sure Mike well knows,
35th anniversary. Yep.
Say it.
Hagler and Hearns.
Attaboy.
Greatest 3 rounds in boxing history.
Yes. The greatest 8 minutes or so because it ended midway through the third round. Right. But what a dramatic fight. And shame on me. And I'm like, because I was talking about Hagler's losses, and I mistakenly said Benny Briscoe instead of Willie the Worm Monroe. And the host, God bless him, did say Bobby Boogaloo Watts, so we at least got one right. And I wrote on Twitter today, I'm like, I hope Russell Peltz isn't listening.
Russell's a subscriber to Ringside Seat.
And rightfully so, man. No, and I'm so glad Farhood's with you, man, because I remember in the 90s when I was covering boxing, I ran into Farhood a few times, and he was always incredibly kind to me.
Boxing Hall of Fame. You know? We got 2 Boxing Hall of Famers. Nigel, who Tom knows.
Nigel Collins, absolutely.
And now Steve Farhood. So
you got to get Graham Houston to guest column at least. If that, I don't know, is he still with Boxing Monthly in Britain? I don't know, because it seems like he's in Canada or
Boxing
something.
Monthly
like that.
Closed.
Did they?
Yeah, they shut down.
Wow, pre-virus?
No,
because of the virus.
Like 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
So all that's left now is
fucking virus.
Is the ring, boxing news, and Ringside Seat.
Damn, that's insane.
Yeah.
All right, pick up Graham Houston, man, if you can.
Come to us. Come, you know.
All right, we're gonna have to make something happen. That's excellent.
He needs to come over and join Ringside Seat.
Boxing history being made here on our Columbo podcast.
Back to Columbo.
Yes, right. Okay. So the next one, By Dawn's Early Light, which is my favorite Patrick McGowan episode, where he has the school. You know, he's running the school, the military school.
Yes. Bruno Kirby is a young actor.
Bruno Kirby. Which is Vince Keenan wanted me to mention him because he loves that episode. That's his favorite episode. And McGowan won an Emmy for that one.
Deservedly, incredible.
Yeah. He's fantastic in that.
And very sympathetic. You start off hating him, and then halfway through, you start to fall in love with him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whose job was it to hang the cider from the window?
And in that one, he's washing his socks.
That's
in the dorm.
It's such a bizarre. That's the one that they make him stay on the base with the children. It's such a bizarre twist.
Oh, I'll just take it. Yeah. Well, they offer him, I think, like an officer's quarters. Like, oh no, I'm fine in the barracks. That's you love that, man. It's amazing. I think that's a great.
One of the low key background or backstories that he was a Korean War vet, and it's hinted that he served honorably, like he did,
That Falk did, really.
Yeah, the
character
of Columbo. Yeah, he mentions in a few episodes that he saw some action.
I didn't remember that.
Was the Richard Kiley commissioner one where his license, his firing, he's got to go to the firing range, and he I don't know where the hell my gun is. I really can't make it.
Yes, yes.
And it ends with him at the target thing, and of course he's a dead shot and everything.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, he still can do it. You gotta. That's the beauty of this character, man. That's the thing. It's I mess around. All right, what's your next one?
Best detective of all time. My personal.
Oh God, yes.
Better than Poirot. Better than.
Well, certainly more fun to watch than Poirot.
Sure, better than Sherlock Holmes.
And I would say as well as Holmes and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, the next is Try and Catch Me, which is definitely would have been one of my.
That's on my top five.
Ruth Gordon,
and
my favorite killer, Ruth Gordon, my favorite killer.
Yeah,
Marianne Hartley is Ruth Gordon's assistant in that.
That's
one.
right.
Who belly dancing in that episode?
She blackmails
belly dancing.
And talk about blackmailing. She blackmails Ruth Gordon in that episode.
And they have the best conversation when they have the blackmail conversation,
yes,
and because she's like apologizing, she's like, "I'm so sorry, I'm blackmailing," and Ruth Gordon's like, "No, you're making your play. It's fine, honey."
It's so quintessential Ruth Gordon.
Yeah.
And that one, the bond between Columbo and the killer is like as strong as the one that was with Donald Pleasance.
I agree. It's so strong. She asks him to get off at the end. She's like, "Will you let me off? We're friends. I'm an old lady. I'm obviously not gonna kill anybody else.
Right.
Can I just have this one?"
But also how ingenious it was how he figures out who the killer is because with the drawers, with the drawers, and he's like a puzzle, and he's piecing the drawers together, and how they go to how they point to her author page. In her manuscript.
It's buried in the light socket.
It's buried in the light socket.
Not working, so I unscrewed the light bulb. And look what I found.
Yeah.
So yeah,
what a cruel way to kill a person! Lock him in the safe with just starved to death with no oxygen, just slowly died by himself.
Yeah.
Well, and the Carsini one, right? Isn't that in the wine crypt? Isn't he
Yes,
doesn't he suffocate in the wine crypt?
But he was knocked out though too.
He was knocked out and tied up. This guy was just sitting there scratching.
That's true. That's very good. Yeah, you're right.
The last one
in the dark, in the no matches anymore.
Right.
He's running out of oxygen. Right.
Right.
Murder Under Glass.
I was going to say
with Louis Jourdan with the blowfish.
Oh yeah,
and Michael
from The Godfather.
Right, Frankie Five Fingers, Five Angels. Michael, incredibly long Italian name.
I can't think of it right now, but so that is one of the 3 episodes where the killer tried to kill Columbo. It's that one. Lady in Waiting, which is the one with Clark. What's her name?
Janet Leigh?
No, the one where the woman is Richard Anderson plays her brother.
Oh, Susan Clark.
Susan Clark.
From Webster, Webster's mom.
Right.
When she's very young, yes.
And she tries to kill him. She pulls a gun on him in that episode. And then How to Dial a Murder, which is the one with Nicole Williamson, where he tries to kill Columbo with the dogs.
That's right. Rosebud.
Oh, right, yeah.
And he's got all the Hollywood memorabilia in his house.
Right. And then this one where Louis Jourdan tries to poison him.
I respect you, but I don't like you, Lieutenant. I was just thinking the same thing, sir. I don't like you too much, either.
Directed by Jonathan Demme. That episode.
Wow, that's right.
That?
Oh, my God. You know what's awesome? Coach from Cheers.
Nicholas Colasanto.
Directed several Columbos.
He directed a couple of them. And also Nicholas Colasanto was in Raging Bull.
Of course, yes, as the mob boss. He don't respect me. Tommy, he respects you. You don't understand. I love in the Swan Song Johnny Cass episode, they kind of play on his name, and he's like, I was talking to your producer. Oh, Nicholas Solacanto. So it's kind of a malaprop of his name.
I never noticed that. That's very good. I never noticed that.
Isn't that amazing that not only was the coach fantastic and could switch gears and play a mob boss in Raging Bull, but that he actually was a good TV director as well.
Very good. He was a very good director.
I had no idea.
Pretty neat, man.
Wow.
So is that your list,
and he was a good dramatic actor. I mean, he's
a very good dramatic actor.
He's
Absolutely,
really good in Raging Bull.
He was amazing in Raging Bull. Absolutely, man. Is that your list, Mike?
That is my list.
That was 15, man. There's so many good episodes. That's
right. There's really good ones that I left off. So
I picked one bad episode to not be on your top 5, so I have one that's not mine. That you didn't mention. I have Double Shock, the twin.
I like that one.
I like that one.
Yeah, I do too. I like Lando as the twins.
I like
Lando as
Martin
his twins. It's not the best episode.
No,
it
it's not.
also it breaks the mold too because you don't know who the killer is. It's one of the few ones because there's a twin, so it's a fun little twin.
Oh yeah, Mike,
And
who's
it's
the
very
housekeeper that she's a great character actress.
Yeah, I know who you're
She's
talking
in Cloak
about.
and Dagger with Dabney Coleman. All right, I'm looking her up because I'm gonna look her up.
It also has Catwoman doing yoga, which is
Julie Newmar is in that.
Oh my god,
she's married to the old man.
Yeah, she's married to the old man.
Right.
It's fucking weird.
Right.
Oh, but she like is just Columbo. Julie Newmar in her prime was a very lovely looking woman.
Oh yeah.
She was
Columbo just like, wow, I don't understand.
She was at C2E2 years ago, and I'll tell you, man, for a lady that likely is in her 80s or whatever, still has a beautiful dancer's figure. She's quite impressive. Jeanette Nolan is who I was thinking of.
Oh, okay, right.
And she plays that. And I'm sorry. Listen, I know he's flicking his ashes, and I forget what it is. He thought it was an ashtray. What do you think you're doing?
Yeah.
Tracking mud on my carpet?
Okay.
And that episode has the famous chef scene. That's why I like the episode. It has
where he's
Julie
on the
Newmar
show.
and the chef scene where where Columbo just goes crazy for 2 minutes. It makes no sense at all.
I know,
but it's awesome. He's on the TV cooking show.
Like you put a camera on him and he turns into a completely different character and he's doing like little like silent movie bits and stuff. It's just
and Wilfred Hyde White is the butler, I think, in that scene, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I will put now. All right, now I'm confused. What's the one with Janet Leigh called?
Oh, that was the one. Sam Jaffe is in that place.
Right,
plays
the victim. The great Sam Jaffe from Lost Horizon and Ben Casey.
I cannot remember the name.
Because I thought that was Lady in Waiting, but I guess either that or Requiem for a Falling Star. Right, I'm gonna look up Janet Leigh.
That's the Lady in Waiting. Yeah, is the one with Susan Clark.
Right.
I can't remember the name of the one with Janet Leigh. She's like losing her mind. She's like, she's
right. Forgotten Lady.
Yeah.
Forgotten Lady. That's
Forgotten
the name.
Lady.
And John Payne.
John Payne is her like friend, agent, or her co-star,
former lover that she wants to do a new revival with, or at least
John Payne, 99 River Street, one of the all-time great film noir movies ever. He plays a boxer in that too.
Yep.
Have you ever seen Tom? Have you ever seen 99 River Street?
I have seen 99 River
Street. That's a great movie.
Yeah,
Mike, another great boxing kind of noir. Right Cross, John Sturges and Ricardo Montalban.
I have never seen that one. I have never seen that.
And I'm sure you've seen Mystery Street, of course.
Yeah. Oh, Mystery Street's great.
Tom, Mystery Street.
Yeah, of course, Ricardo Montalban. Yeah, one of the it's like Law and Order 1952.
Exactly, or Quincy 1950, or CSI 1952. And honestly, that's when I'm like, something, I'm not gonna. I mean, I always love Ricardo Montalban and love him when he's over the top, and I always make fun of him saying, "Do you realize?" Because I just love his accent and his Columbo, by the way.
His Columbo with the bullfight, with the bullfighter.
Love that one.
Very good.
Oh my God!
But that Mystery Street really broke the mold in so many ways because you've got this Latino playing this professor. He's brilliant in it, and it also was, like you were pointing out, Tom. It kind of brought in the whole idea of forensics into movies. I mean, I don't think forensics were ever featured in a movie the way they were, and it's got that one animated scene with what's her name's corpse.
Yeah,
right, the victim. Yeah. I that's why I started to say Montalban is so greatly low key in that movie, and it's like he is a great actor. I'm a little ashamed that I've been kind of making fun of him, and ever since then I've examined his work over again, and it's like, this guy's a genius. And he did play a lot of over-the-top characters, but he also played a lot of characters with dignity. And he's a very important actor. And I think
I need to see Red Cross. I need to see.
It's sitting on my DVR from when I still had Turner. That's sitting on there, as well as It's Always Fair Weather, the one of the last great musicals that it's Julie Munchin and Gene Kelly, and I forget who the third dancer is. It's kind of on the town 10 years later.
Eddie told me the best Montalban story. I think you were there, Michael, about... I'm going to fuck this story up, but I'll tell you because I love it. He said Eddie Miller was interviewing him, and he asked him sort of what the most proud role he ever played was, or something along those lines. And he said, "Oh, well, I do these, I don't know what kind of Dotson commercials on TV or something." like some shitty car commercials he did on
Cordoba, Chrysler.
He did the Cordoba, the Chrysler.
Yeah, great. And he's like, "What? You've been in why are you so proud of that?" And he's like, "The fact that this great country, America, would want to buy a car because some poor kid from Mexico told him to do it makes me so proud of where I've sort of come from and what this country is."
Yeah,
interesting.
That was the
yeah.
story.
That was when we had dinner with Eddie. I don't know.
I was blown away by that story. Yeah.
My iPad is running out of juice. I've got to plug it in.
Oh, so you're gonna have to unplug your earbuds.
Is that okay if I unplug my?
We can try it. We'll see how it sounds and everything. It's okay, buddy.
Now I can hear twice as much me.
What? I lost you guys.
Oh, all right. You're still there. So yeah, I think you just maybe have to go to the bottom of your screen and work on your camera or whatever. There's a.
How's that? Is that working now?
We can hear you, but we can't see you. Sign in, mystery guest.
You can't hear me, right?
Mystery guest. Oh no, we miss your beautiful face. Guys, podcast got such ugly.
It's at the bottom of the screen. You should have. There's a microphone icon. There's a camera icon. And there's a gearbox for camera and microphone. You might have to either hit camera or the gear symbol to fix it. And and you can be anonymous. We're talking to Mr. X, and we have further questions for him.
Shit.
Are you still with us, buddy?
I'm glad I'm not the one needing technical difficulties. This is amazing for me. Maybe it's your DVD player got in the way.
Okay, that's fine, Mike. No problem. That's excellent. Right. All right, man, that guy. Jesus, what an asshole.
What the fuck is his problem? It's like boxing this, an actor that.
Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. Oh, God, I'm so tired.
How are you?
I want to talk about the new Fast and Furious movies.
Oh, my God.
How am I? I'm good. How are you, John?
I'm good, man.
I was not kidding before when I say I listened to your podcast. I listened to 3 hours of Mike Gold this weekend.
Wasn't that great? Seriously.
Yes. It was. I felt like I was an old Chicago hand by the end.
Seriously, man. Like, we need to have a meal with Mike Gold sometime because you will love his stories. Obviously, you got a lot of them, and what an important guy.
I would. Well, he's vital to me, sort of getting into comics because he wrote the introductions to all the best of things. I don't know, but people remember that. I have them on my shelf here, best of DC or best of Superman or.
I didn't realize that. That's amazing.
And he would write like a detailed introduction of how they did this, and see, there it is, there's Mike Gold's little signature there. Wow. And it was that when I was 11, 12, that was the first comic book history I'd ever read where someone was talking about comics in prose form, and I was addicted to them, read them religiously over and over. I could probably quote them from like verse. So yeah, it was awesome hearing from him.
We can talk about what John Soares says about Columbo. The Leslie Nielsen episode with McGowan is incredible.
See, I disagree. That's one of the things I don't like. It's too complicated. It has too many twists and turns, and I'm not a smart enough man to follow where it is.
Now that's the one that ends with him giving the speech.
He gives
and that's another Vito Scotti episode as well, because I believe it's for his organization that. All right, Mike's back. Let's see here. That Vito does, or that McGowan.
Now I'm in the middle. I'm on the center square.
There you go. It's like volleyball. We've all rotated.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, you sound okay.
Okay.
You're cool.
I'm gonna plug back in and see if this works.
If you want to win nerdy Hollywood squares, you better go with Tom because
Tom, out of 100 women, the question is,
I've been watching Card Sharks with my kids. I don't know why, but Buzzer calms me down. It's one of the few things that's it's almost like Xanax on TV.
Are you talking about old game shows now?
Yeah, Buzzer.
How about what was it? Joker's Wild?
Joker's Wild is fine.
Joker's Wild's not on Buzzer.
That's the one with Jack Barry, who was notorious for 21 and the great quiz show scandals. Right, and then, and he came back. He and Dan Edwright, the host and producer, came back with Joker's Wild in the 70s. And yeah, it's kind of crazy if you watch the quiz show movie.
The Robert Redford movie about that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah, they directed, not that he was in.
Yeah.
The PBS documentary about the quiz show scandals is pretty amazing as well.
I haven't seen that.
A great celebrity was on the $64,000 question. Her subject was boxing, and she won $64,000. Mike? Oh, you don't know?
Was it? I don't know. It wasn't Joyce Carol Oates, was it?
No, but you're right with part of the name.
Oh, Dr.
It
Joyce
was, of
Brothers.
course, John Oates from Hall & Oates. No, it wasn't John Oates.
Joyce
Dr. Joyce Brothers?
It was Joyce Brothers. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And that's how she became famous.
Really?
That's what kind of put her in the spotlight.
You know what?
And they tried to get rid of her because they didn't feel she was, for whatever reason, a good contestant. I guess she was a cute little lady back in the day, and still is an older lady as well. But for whatever reason, they tried to get her off, and she had a photographic memory and memorized a boxing, history book and learned everything.
Is that on YouTube? Those episodes with her on from?
That's a very good question. I don't know. But I do know that's part of her backstory is, Joyce Brothers. But also Patty Duke was on a different show, and they fed her the questions, and she kind of cracked on the stand and started crying. And this is before she was in the Patty Duke show and stuff, before identical cousins were a thing.
I just saw her on Password last night on Buzzer. Time is a flat circle.
My favorite show of on Buzzer is Tattletales with the husbands and wives.
That's late night. It's like 2 a.m. Buzzer. That's when the anxiety is really high if you're watching Tattletales.
Shatner's on there with one of his wives, Jack Carter, and all these crazy Gary Crosby, Bing Crosby's son from his first set of sons. His first set of kids.
A lot of messed up people.
Bing Crosby, the guy who drove his son to suicide.
I want to say two of them.
Allegedly.
I think so. Something like that.
Yeah, no, of his first family, none of the kids reached the age of 35 or something.
Oh no, Gary made it to 50s or maybe even 60s.
Well, two of them killed themselves. I mean, none of them were the second family. They're all still alive.
Right. Well, he did it right, but.
Denise, which one is the Star Trek lady? Denise Crosby. Who did she come from?
She's a granddaughter of, I believe, either Gary or one of the other sons.
One of the first batch sons.
Yeah, one of the first four.
Interesting.
Yep.
When I was a kid, I used to go to game shows because I grew up in LA, and my father would once every 2 or 3 years go on a game show and lose, but I would go and sit in the audience. And
that's great.
My aunt, my mother's best friend on Scrabble, if anyone remembers that. She with Chuck Woolery, who's now a crazy person, but
nuts.
She beat the bank there. They had to take her off the show because she won so many times, and they actually hired her to work for the show because she won $80,000 or something in 1987.
What other shows was you
over and over again?
What other shows were you? Do you remember any?
I went to Scrabble. I went to. Oh, I don't. I remember one time, you see the door prize. There was a raffle. There was a guy who warmed up the audience, just like when you see a sitcom live.
Sure.
And there was a raffle, and I remember, I'm like 7 years old in this, but so I won a year's supply of Kentucky Fried Chicken in a raffle.
What is a year's supply of Kentucky Fried Chicken?
So this is what it was. They gave me a bucket, but it wasn't like a paper bucket. It was like a plastic bucket. And I could go into any Kentucky Fried Chicken, and they'd have to fill my bucket with fried chicken.
Did it have a special code in it?
It was
bucket.
It was like fill this bucket. My mother only let me do it twice because it was too much chicken. But I kept the bucket. It was a nice bucket, and I don't know. We were so poor we couldn't have buckets. I don't get it. So I put toys in it for the rest of my life. But it was that's my year's supply of Kentucky Fried Chicken bucket.
Wasn't that the name of a Louis L'Amour Western? Fill my bucket.
Fill my bucket.
That's outstanding, man. That's a great story. Jesus, you're killing me, man.
I used to do that when I was a kid, go to those game shows and watch them in the audience. Because they film them all in a row, which is it blows your mind when you're a child.
Oh yeah, a week's worth of shows, right? 5
days. That's right. They just keep changing their clothes, and they film an entire week, in one episode, in one day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's
serious question. If you let me peg you, thank you. Here's a serious question. Thank you very much, Jessica. Lovely talking to you. There you go. I'm going to say no. How about no?
Good call, John. You nailed that.
I got no problem with that. By all means, make fun of us. That's all right. Should we move on to the documentary?
Let's. I watched it twice. I'm prepped.
Masters of Comic Book Art. Anyone watching? If you saw it, please chime in because I would love to hear people's thoughts on it. I spoke to Ken Viola yesterday afternoon. It's the latest episode of Word Balloon that's on the feed today, and right after the Chaikin episode. And Ken Viola made it, and it was in
You
1987.
talked to the person who made it yesterday?
Out of nowhere, Sunday, after a listener on Twitter said, "Love to hear you guys talk about this," and that's why I suggested the subject for you guys. Ken Viola emails me and he's like, "Hey, I heard you're going to be talking about my documentary. If you want, I'd be happy to answer any questions."
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm like, "That's fantastic, man." So we arranged he wanted to talk during the daytime. I said, we're going to be talking about other things as we've been doing. And I'm like, so I don't want to waste your time being on the live stream. I said, but yeah, I'd love to do an interview. So I'd rather talk in the afternoon anyway. I'm like, great. So we talked, and he gave me a ton of behind the scenes information.
So, I'm just curious, what is he doing now?
He's retired. He's retired. He was very big in the music business. He had a show. I got to bring up his thing again, his IMDb page, because he had a show on MTV that I remember. Rock Influences was what it was called. Carla DeVito was the host of it, and it was like one of the first non-music video shows that MTV was doing, and he learned how to shoot on that show as an associate producer, and then literally took a Betamax camera out. Was a lifelong comic fan. Was lifelong friends with Bernie Wrightson, among others, and just kind of established a bunch of these contacts. He wanted to be a comic book writer, and submitted stuff to Charlton and other publishers. It's all in the interview, but got to know Steve Ditko, and that's why Steve Ditko participated in the documentary.
Is that his voice?
It is his voice.
That's his voice?
Yes.
That's what I wanted to talk to you about, because
Absolutely.
thought the most fascinating thing about, it was a really great documentary, but I was just glued listening to Ditko talk.
That was his voice? I had no idea. I assumed it was
someone heard him talk before.
Yeah.
Well, apparently, and it's in my talk with Ken, and I'm glad people are chiming in that they did listen to the episode today. Thanks, guys, because I was a little worried about the timing of it, if there would be enough time.
I was listening to Chaikin today, yelling at me that I suck. That's what I was listening to. Listen to fucking John.
I know. He's a lot of great stories, but yeah, apparently he met Steve in a younger point in his life, and Steve, the idea that Steve is the J.D. Salinger of comics, Ken will contest and say that's not true. He didn't want publicity, but if you wrote him, he would write back, and especially I guess this was happening in the 70s or 60s. And when he was ready to do the documentary, he approached Ditko. Ditko said, "I don't want to be on camera, so what will you show?" And he's like, "Well, let me show, scenes from Mr. A." And Ditko was thrilled with that.
Yeah.
And then, Ditko just kind of gives his screed, his little manifesto and his beliefs in objectivism and Ayn Rand. And
his accent is so weird. I was trying to nail it down. I was like, sometimes it sounds almost Hispanic, but then sometimes it's middle. Yeah, I assumed it was a reader. I had no idea it was him.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. The film's from 1987, and that's an interesting time. And I even wanted to. I went and researched. I'm pulling out my notes here because I wanted to see how old everybody was when they made it.
But 87 was amazing because you think about what was going on with DC in 1987. I was just like, I was so young, and it was just an explosion at DC. Between Watchmen and Miller coming over and doing Ronin at first, which was several years before, and then Dark Knight and The Shadow, that Bill Sienkiewicz, and
well, that was a little bit later, actually. I think this,
that was 80. No, that started.
This is post
88.
Miller references Elektra in his interview, so he does.
Well, let me give you the ages of everybody. Miller was 30.
Fuck Miller. Fuck him and his fucking.
Isn't that crazy? Eisner was 70. Jack Kirby was 70. Harvey Kurtzman was 63.
Kurtzman looked like he was 88.
Yeah.
And that's why he kind of died not incredibly young, but he certainly wasn't that old.
63?
Yeah.
That's insane. He looked like he was, on last legs in that documentary.
I hear you.
Bernie looked so young, and he looked so good.
Yeah, he looks model. He's like John Cassidy pretty.
Yeah, and I think about him because it's like I got into him from the book The Studio, when I was very, very young. I bought that book when he and Barry Smith and Jeff Jones and Michael Kaluta shared a studio. And it was like when I was young and I was going to be an artist and go to art school, it was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be in a studio with like other artists and, and do fine art, just like these guys are doing. I got the chance to, and this is thanks to Russ Cochran, when I was working for Comic Book Marketplace, when I was the art director for that. Mm-hmm. He gave me Bernie Wrightson's phone number and he said, go interview him, go talk to him. He's waiting for you to call him. I got to interview and talk to Bernie Wrightson on the phone. And then I interviewed Will Eisner. It was like probably Eisner's last interview. He died like a week after I talked to him.
Wow.
Whoa. So just the chance to talk to both of those guys, talk to them.
Wow.
That was amazing. I do not have those recordings anymore. I have the interviews, but I don't have those recordings anymore.
Eisner came to the University of Chicago, which is Chicago's like version of an Ivy League school. That's where they split the atom. That's where the Manhattan Project was going on. They had a humanities weekend and they focused on comics. Neil Gaiman came to town from Wisconsin. He interviewed Eisner on stage. Scott McCloud was there. Art Spiegelman was there. So that's the first time. And this was 2000, like 5 years before I started Word Balloon. But it was great because it was in this university atmosphere. They spoke on a big stage. There was, seats for like a large kind of auditorium classroom. Afterwards in the lobby, they just hung out and you could talk to them. And I brought 2 Warren Spirit issues with me for Will to sign. And great. The paper had oxidized and became peach colored, which I found crazy. And he's like, oh, yeah, I remember these. And I go, was that the paper? He goes, no, it's because they're older. And I said, oh, okay. Couldn't have been sweeter, Eisner. And my Bernie Wrightson experiences, luckily, I went to college with Tim Bradstreet. And Tim did work with Bernie.
That's cool.
At San Diego Comic-Con, he introduced me to Bernie. And Tim was great. Tim's great. He's a good friend. And Bernie was great. And he's like, hey, Tim says I'm supposed to talk to you. I'm like, that would be great. And he goes, well, we'll do it sometime. And Tony Moore had his show in Cincinnati, Cincy Comic-Con, and Bernie was a featured guest. And we were going to do an onstage, panel. And that's when Bernie got sick and he had to cancel and he never got well. So that's my great regret. But Bernie was a sweetheart of a guy when I met him. Yeah.
The only guy I know there, I mean, Frank Miller and I are legit friends. But he's a different person now 30 years later than he was then. But you can kind of see underneath who he is now, that's 30-year-old still there. Like that nerve who's trying to do it. But it is interesting to see him like in his edgy phase as opposed to his grand old man of comics phase. He's not even that old, he's like 60, but yeah, well, it is bizarre to see him.
Well, the reason I got into the Spirit was because of those Warren books.
Absolutely, me too.
Creepy and eerie, and speaking of which, that Jim Warren biography is fantastic.
Yeah, I've read that one. That's really good.
Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah. Here, I want to hide the chat so I could see Tom's face.
Oh, I can sit up.
There you go. There you go. That's fine.
Sorry, no problem, it's my own laziness.
Now my
head is so much bigger than yours.
Now you got a giant head and you're above us.
You're the great and powerful Oz.
That's why I was trying to sit back here. All right,
you're good.
Okay. Can I give you my overall observation on that documentary?
Yeah, I want to hear everything you guys think of the documentary.
This is my comic book people are insane. We are. There was like 2 sane people on that. Well,
who are the 2 sane people?
Bernie Wrightson was pretty sane. He seemed chill. Jack Kirby was like 80%, and then Mobius seemed, because he was French, so he probably hid his craziness a little bit. But besides that, man, that was like one crazy interview after another,
including Harlan as the narrator.
Yeah, including Harlan. The Spiegelman was very Spiegelman because he was, but yeah, maybe
Spiegelman was 39, by the way, while he was doing it.
39. Oh.
Isn't that awesome? And Dave Sim was 31.
He's the Canadian, right? Sim's
yes, Cerebus. Yeah, he's the
Canadian. They can have him. I'm good. They can have him. That's the one I'd want to give back.
That's hilarious. Jeez. Neil was 46. Did I leave anybody out for their ages? No. And Bernie was, like I said, 39.
And
Bernie.
how old was Ditko?
Oh, Ditko. Did I look up Ditko? I did not. All right, I'm going to look up Ditko's age, and I'll tell you in a second.
I mean, for me, it's like Neil was kind of Neil in almost every
Totally
interview that I've seen.
Yeah, he's always
and what Tom brought up about Frank Miller was I love seeing the enthusiasm that he had. It was like just coming through. But man, the Ditko thing, and I saw somebody on the commented there about like how they couldn't follow along. Who could follow along what he had to say?
Dude, I listened to it. I followed.
You know, it's just fascinating to hear him speak. I mean, this is his idea. This is his philosophy. And it's clear to him how clear he thinks about this stuff.
Yeah.
Which I found fascinating. And I bought out of, do you remember the Monster Times, John?
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
Okay. I used to get the Monster Times when I was a kid, which was like Rolling Stone. It was a bi-weekly, bifold tabloid about horror and comics, horror movies and comic books. And I loved it because it had so much about comic books. My brothers, had a subscription to Rolling Stone. I used to get Monster Times. It was like, I got you have Rolling Stone. And I got in there. I sent away because I was fascinated with Ditko's Spider-Man. I loved his Spider-Man. And I sent away, and I remember the Neil Adams Index, which had interviews with Neil Adams in it and a listing of all of Adams' stuff. And this is in the 70s. And Neil's interviews in that sound exactly the way he was talking in the documentary. Exactly.
Neil still sounds that way. That is Neil.
Yeah.
I mean, in that, I remember in this interview he was talking about when he was talking about Dead Man and he was talking about his experimentation in Dead Man. In these interviews, these early interviews, he was talking about how like he went to Marvel and he went to Stanley, and I guess this is pretty well known, that he said, "Give me the book that's selling the worst." That's how he took on X-Men. But I got that, and I got Mr. A, which was on like newsprint in black and white because I had no clue what I was reading. What the fuck is this? I'm like 12 years old or 10 years old, and I'm like, what is this? But the graphics in it were fascinating, and the graphics that the guy, what's his name, the director,
Ken Viola,
that he picked were great because that imagery is just the line work and the black and white work that Ditko was doing. To me, it's obvious that he was influenced by film noir. He had
absolutely
film noir and also German expressionism in film.
Sure. He says that Kirby admired Ditko for his storytelling, which is pretty amazing to hear that, Kirby was older than Ditko. Ditko, by the way, was 60 when the movie, when the documentary was made. The Doctor Strange origin is so clear and perfect, and it's only 11 pages long. It's a classic Ditko example of like how good he was. And there's a lot of noir in there, especially before Stephen Strange meets the Ancient One. And when you see him kind of Skid Row and everything, I mean, it's very noir.
Yeah.
And I'm a massive Ditko fan as well. And because again, the image of Ditko as Salinger has really, gone through the decades. And this is why it's great to talk to people like Ken, who made this movie back in '87, because I think if all you're basing it on is reputation, and even that BBC thing that Jonathan Ross made, In Search of Steve Ditko, he's presented as this very enigmatic man who doesn't, like to be seen. And it's like, no, it's just he doesn't like publicity. He is against the culture of fame that even back in the '60s was against it. And that's why he's not on that Merry Marching Marvel Society.
He just jumped out the window, John. Did you hear fans?
Oh, we just missed him. So it's fascinating. But really, and it's something that Ken points out in the interview, and he's right, about Kirby and Ditko and even John Romita, that in that Marvel style, the artists really wrote those stories. And Stan, they would discuss the plot, and Stan would, discuss it with them.
Right.
And he would dialogue it after the fact. But really, I mean, I know Ramita Senior would sometimes be like, "Hey, how about a new Doc Ock story? Yeah, go with that." And it's like, okay, great. He would flesh it out, and then Stan would
talk to Steranko about the whole Captain America thing, because I mean, I've talked to Jim a lot about that. I mean, I interviewed him for that Marvel magazine, and talked to him about it. It was like Jim said, I wrote the script for the most part for those those 3 Captain America stories. You know, he is the one person that should have been included. And
I've got a story about that, and Ken talks about it in the conversation.
Great. I want to hear that.
He did approach.
He is obviously missing. You talk about masters of comic book art.
He talked.
I thought that too.
He talked Ken out of putting him in the documentary because he felt, and again, this is 1987 Steranko, that his contribution to comics was so small compared to the rest of his graphic career that he's like, it's a blip. I really, these other guys that you're talking to are really, storytellers that have this large body of work. And Ken kind of went with them and said, okay.
That's interesting.
I found that incredibly interesting.
I know he's got a rivalry with Neil Adams.
Absolutely. Well, and hand in hand, they were the 2 innovators of that period. And you're right. I feel the same way. It's like, and I kind of am like, really, Ken? Because, I mean, God, think of all the mixed media that Steranko put in a lot of his comics, and just the ideas and his panels and the various things. I always love that inside joke that Neil had. And I forget what comic it was, where there's a panel
the Dead Man. It's from Strange Adventures. It's Dead Man. It's a Jim Steranko effect. You got to hold it. You hold it to the side, and you can really see it.
Absolutely, it's fantastic.
I mean, it was a friendly rivalry, but the last time I saw Jim over at the Charlotte Con a couple of years ago.
He didn't go to Baltimore. He was at Baltimore. I hung out with Baltimore this year.
Huh?
I hung out with
in Baltimore. Yeah, that's right. The rivalry is still pretty strong, though.
They were on stage together a few years ago at New York Con. I know that. And I finally, because I mean, Jim, more so than Stanley ever was in his life, the one man I wanted to get on with Word Balloon was Jim. And finally, I got to moderate his panel at Terrificon last year.
You told me about that the last time we spoke. Yeah,
he was great. He was exactly what I wanted, and had been teasing me literally for 14 years of trying to get him on. And really, when I got back I saw him the next day, and I'm like, finally. And he's laughing, and he goes, I hope it was good. I'm like, of course it was good. It's exactly what I wanted you to do.
Well,
that was beautiful.
He's like Eddie's hero, and I love him too. I mean, I've known him for a long time, but I used to get calls from him at like 3 a.m. It was really strange watching boxing matches with him on the phone as we were watching the fight together.
That's fantastic.
But the story, story's straight. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was just going to say that Eddie and I had planned an idea of like a night of Steranko for Noir City in San Francisco.
Oh, that'd be cool.
And we were going to show his movie that he did. Let him pick the movies, and then have like a audio visual thing with his panels and stuff that he picked out, and then show his movie that was based on At the Stroke of Midnight, that was done at the American Film Institute. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't seen that.
It's on YouTube. It's called Shadow House.
And he directed it?
He did not. He was a production designer for it. Another guy directed it, but Jim, it looks like the comic book come to life.
Wow.
It's a short movie. And the guy who plays the lead is John, help me with this. From The Odd Couple. He's the one who's going to go to Miami Beach.
Vinny?
With his wife. Yes. He is the lead. He played the lead. And
oh my God.
By Steranko to play the lead. That's who Steranko wanted to play the lead.
I can't remember his name, but he also played Bernie Tupperman, the urologist, on the original Bob Newhart show.
Right.
I love that guy. No, he's terrific. He's a great Vinny. John Fiedler, of course, in the movie.
That's John Fiedler. It's John Fiedler.
Oh, it's John Fiedler. I see.
John
It's from the movie rather than
Yes.
the TV show.
Yes, John.
He
Fiedler.
was all right. John Fiedler, also Jack the Ripper in that great Star Trek original series episode.
Best Star Trek episode.
Where they think Scotty killed the woman on Argelius and everything.
Yeah, that's a great episode. I love that one.
Wolf in the Fold, I believe, is the title of that one.
Right.
Wayne, I am well aware of Prisoners of Gravity, a great Canadian television show that featured incredible interviews with comic book creators. I completely agree with you.
I've been interviewed by that guy who did the interviews.
No kidding.
Yeah, in Canada when I did.
Is he still doing it anywhere as far as like video, or like what was the format for your interview?
Some sort of podcast-ish thing.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What's his name? Do you remember the name of his podcast?
Oh, I can't remember. No, I'm sorry.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to look that up. I'll search. Wayne, if you know, please chime that in.
Oh, he was like, I've interviewed Kurt. I was like, you're like, oh, you know,
he interviewed everybody.
And then he showed me the news. I was like, oh my god. Wow.
Wayne is mentioning Jim's classes that he's doing at conventions now. Jim is doing these kind of classes that you can sign up where he's teaching,
Oh, I want to go to a convention. Guys, let's get rid of this virus.
Teaching comic book art and how to do comic book art and storytelling and stuff.
I'm hoping that Jim documents a lot of his stories on film or whatever before it's too late.
He's writing his autobiography. I already wrote the chapter about him as an escape artist, but it'll never see the light of day. I'm not convinced it will. He'll be pissed at me. You don't want Jim Steranko pissed at you. I've had him pissed at me a couple of times.
Oh, I'm aware. I'm aware of like his temper. There's some classic behind the scenes stories that I won't tell out of school.
You and I talked about that.
Yeah. I mean, he's Jim's. Hey man, Jim and Neil, they are their own biggest fans. But I always say, and actually this is an unfair comparison because I think Muhammad Ali was nicer, but they can back it up much like Ali could. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, believe me, these are the two greats. They know it, but they deserve the accolades. They were the best.
Oh no, Neil deserves everything that's coming to him because he was the first person who stood up to the big companies and said comic book creators deserve something.
He did.
And that's a moment of justice for our industry.
The ACBA, which was the union that he began in the 70s, that kind of like unfortunately lost steam. That was all Neil.
Yeah.
And he was also the person he was
Siegel and Schuster
in getting Siegel and Schuster their rights back.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
I even talked to Neil in my interview. That interview that I did with him, although it's in Batcave Companion, the entire interview is in Comic Book Marketplace, and it's not all of it is not included in the Batcave Companion. And I spoke to him in detail about Bill Finger and about what was going on. This is 2003 when I was talking to him, and this was before Bill Finger was kind of got his his due, I guess. And he had some strong opinions. If you can pick up that issue of Comic Book Marketplace. But
we didn't talk about Bill Finger in my first conversation with him back in 2005, but we had a nice 2-hour chat, and we did talk about Siegel and Schuster. We did talk about Superman versus Ali. Him from a visual standpoint, getting Batman back to his roots. We had a lot of great talks, and I'll be honest, I'm a little disappointed that I think after doing Fat Man on Batman, Neil only, now he's on the right side of the velvet ropes, and it's kind of tough to get a hold of him. And it kind of bums me out because I would love to talk to him more. Lately on his website, and I'm happy to promote it, he did those Ben Casey comic strips before he got into comic books, and he's selling complete stories, PDFs of the original Ben Casey comic strips for like $5 a story. And they're a great buy. And I mean, man, if you love great draftsmanship, those Ben Casey things are incredible. They're fantastic looking.
Yeah. You know what I love in the Ben Casey was, if you guys are familiar with the Strange Adventures of the Dead Man, if you guys are familiar with his Dead Man stories, Strange Adventures, that great thing where, and Neil was talking in the documentary about experimentation.
Excuse me.
And he did that great page where the panels formed Dead Man's head. He did that first in Ben Casey.
Oh, that's amazing. That's
He
great
did
to
that
hear.
first in Ben Casey on a Sunday strip when Sundays had the multiple strips, instead of like the dailies had the single strip, but
Yeah, 4 panels.
but the Sundays of course had the multiple tiers. And he did that with a Ben Casey face where like the panels outside the panels they would form the entire face of Ben Casey.
Oh my God, Mark, I would love to get a hold of Rick Green, the host of Prisoners of Gravity. I would love to talk to him about his show. So please, send me that email. That would be great. And Rick Green is the name. Thank you, Wayne, very much.
Thank
And,
you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very nice, man.
And
Yeah.
yes, of course,
Stan
Neil,
Drake,
heavily
Stan
influenced
Drake.
by Stan Drake. Yes,
Yeah,
indeed.
definitely.
Of course he was.
And Neil on YouTube does a reading of one of my comic books. He does a reading of my Batman Fudd in Elmer Fudd's voice.
Does he really? That's
You can
so
find
cool.
it on YouTube.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, I'll look for that.
I haven't watched his videos yet.
Okay, I just want to say about that Elmer Fudd, the Batman, in my opinion, one of the 5 greatest noir comics ever. And Eddie and I picked before Tom was moved over to DC, before I even knew who Tom was. We had picked like the 10 greatest noir comics in the noir City comic issue. But my pick would have been Tom's Elmer Fudd and Batman as one of the greatest noir comics ever. If anybody who's watching this does not have that or hasn't read that, they need to do that.
100%.
And I am auctioning off the script on Twitter if you want. I've never auctioned off a script before, but I printed it out for the first time, and you can go to benefit comic book stores. I'm auctioning off the script for that book.
Hashtag creators for comics.
Creators for comics, or you just go down my Twitter feed at Tom King TK, and it's there.
Is Mike? Is that Noir City issue still available?
Oh yeah.
That's awesome, man. No, I hope people.
I'll send it to you.
It's helping. Yeah. Well, also, that's really nice. Thank you, man. I was going to say I'm happy to pick it up, but also,
you know what? Anybody who is interested in any of the back issues for North City, and I'm going to brag about North City a little bit.
It's great. I read it religiously. It's great.
Martin Scorsese has every issue. He bought he had his assistant. This was like a year ago. Buy every single issue. He gets all the annuals also, but Noir City. Let's see, it's noircitymag.com.
Okay,
is the website to purchase all of the back issues, and it's up to date. I do that website, so it's up to date. It's got all the issues. They're $5.99 each, and they're really great. It's got some great stuff, and we've had a lot of great guests do the 5 favorite noirs that Tom's going to be doing in the next issue. Ed Brubaker did it. Dan Clois, his 5 favorites. He said, "Look, I could pick, Sunset Boulevard, and I could pick all these great movies, Double Indemnity." He said, "I'm going out in left field," and he picked like 2 Dragnet episodes. What is that bizarre show? My Fiance, 1 Week Fiance, or something like that.
I don't know that show.
Crazy shows. He picked that.
Is that a Dragnet episode, or is that a separate show?
No, it's a television show now that's going on. It's this bizarre, real world, crazy TV show. And he picked an episode of that, and he picked this really insane 1950s movie like Party Girl, I think is what it's called.
Oh, I know that movie. Didn't Eddie have that on TCM?
He may have.
I loved that movie. That was that's a Kim Novak movie. Was it Kim Novak?
He went in like this crazy kind of direction where he decided like, well, you know what? I could easily pick, 5 fantastic noirs, but I'm going to do something a little different.
Oh, crap. I was going to pick 5 fantastic noirs. Fine. Klaus, think you're so good.
I'm looking at Sid Charisse, excuse me, Party Girl. Yeah, I remember seeing it on Eddie's show. No, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's with Nichols. What's his name?
Nicholas Ray.
Nicholas Ray. Yeah.
Yep. Robert Taylor, Sid Charisse, Lee J. Cobb.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Of course, it's on Amazon Prime, but it's to rent or buy.
It's a color noir musical.
Yep, absolutely, man. And God, Sid Charisse, holy cow. Oof. No, I'm not getting sleepy, John. Don't worry. I'm not even going to put or Roger, excuse me.
Well, I've got my iPad plugged in, and I'm at 17%.
All right, all right. I don't want. All right, we can wrap up. But one thing I want to say about the documentary, I hear what you're saying, guys. In terms of that, only two of them were sane. I really think for being basically around 10-minute interviews with each of them, it really captures the essence of all of these
Absolutely,
guys.
incredibly revealing.
Yeah.
Each 10-minute segment was like to the heart of that character. Like I think that Jack Kirby was almost like 10 minutes of perfection. I think you got exactly when he said my greatest inspiration was, and he paused and he goes, sales. I literally laughed. I was like, yeah, like Jack Kirby had huge ideas and huge questions, but he wanted to feed his family. Like that's what made him great, was that he had both of those sides to him, you know?
And isn't that the attitude of all of the greats from the past? I mean, you're talking about guys like Carmine Infantino, Irv Novick, you know,
My son's gonna be a star.
who's like a pros pro, Jim Aparo, you know, John Romita. I mean, all these guys. One of my good friends in college, his next door neighbor was John Buscema.
Fantastic.
And he was best friends with Buscema's son.
Marvel artist of all time.
John. And Buscema, he was used to like Buscema being up in the, like Buscema had an attic that was his workspace. And, you know, they knew they had to be quiet when they were, you know, around, you know, Buscema's, you know, attic space where he was working, but he was up there working. I mean, it was, I don't know if people really recognize and understand that these guys were working guys. You know, when I watch Mad Men, you know, I know people think about, and logically so, you know, they think about the advertising industry. But when I watch it, it was a great show. I think a lot about comic book artists, specifically DC, and how, because it was so corporate.
Yes.
And the artists that were in there, I wish they had shown more in Mad Men about the guys who were the designers and the illustrators.
Yeah, the art people.
Artists.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it made me think a lot about that time period. I think a great series would be about those guys, specifically in the 60s, maybe early 70s. You could even just do the 60s and then it would transition to the 70s when the fans started becoming the creators. Because those guys were not necessarily comic book fans. Those guys were professionals. Those guys were commercial artists.
Exactly.
A living, and they just happened to be incredibly creative and incredibly inventive. But they were still working class guys.
They were grinding it out. You know, Mike, I make this point all the time, and I think I've told Tom off the air about the specific podcast that I get really angry at because they treat the golden and silver age people like I said this to Howard Chaykin and he was laughing. I'm like, it's like they were the Keebler elves in the tree making cookies. And it's like, no, these were guys that had a deadline and yet made it brilliant art. But don't forget, they were doing it for the paycheck. And I don't mean that in any like that they didn't like what they were doing and they didn't appreciate, you know, that they were that they weren't trying their best. But it was like these, like you just said, they were working class guys. Don't forget that because that's an important part of the equation. And when you deify these people, you're not telling the whole story. And I would say that what you're describing, I'm hoping, you know, Howard Chaykin's in the midst of his Hey Kids comics run. And we discussed this. And I guess, you know, the next volume will be coming obviously post-virus. And he's banking issues in the meantime and he's cranking them out. But it is covering that period. And I hope, I mean, it's starting with the corporate guys of the 40s and 50s, but then it goes to the 2000s, and I'm hoping we're going to see that period, kind of like at the end of Mad Men, when you know the younger hippie guys suddenly come in and are working with the
which I would love to see something like that covered, because that's kind of when I entered in.
Sure,
you know?
Me too.
And, you know, it was, you know, I remember specifically Barry Smith, 1970. You know. Conan, I mean, here's Barry Smith, who was like a Kirby copycat, and to watch him one after another unfold,
elevate and evolve,
something completely different. He became this great, unique artist that we'd never seen before. You know, and Jim was the same way. I think that the only thing that was different was EC and the kind of creative attitude that Feldstein and Gaines brought to the office during the EC Comics. They paid well, they treated their artists well, and they tailored the stories to the styles of the artists. in a lot of ways, I think of that what Tom does, and I don't know if this is how Tom does it, but I've always been amazed at the art that came out in his entire run. And I've told him this before. It's like so consistently great, but the artist always fit the story that he was doing. You know, Jorge did these stories for him that were very noirish, and Jorge has that really great noir style, and those fit. And then Michael Janin, is that how you pronounce his name, right?
Chanin, like Hanukkah.
That the stories that you did for that fit him so well. Finch also, all of it, and
this is great. This is the best podcast ever, John. Thanks for having me on.
They're very. I think I've thought of that because I told Tom specifically. I said, amazingly consistent how all of this worked, and it worked within the story. So I always wondered, similar to what Gaines and Feldstein did, because Gaines and Feldstein wrote those stories. Gaines had the ideas. He would give the ideas to Feldstein, and Feldstein would write the script. And Feldstein would write the script thinking, this is going to be for Graham Ingalls. This is going to be for Wally Wood. This is going to be for Al Williamson. This is going to be for Jack Davis.
Yeah.
Tom, is that something you thought about? You're writing the script, and it's like, this is who I want so-and-so on this one. I want so-and-so on this one. And a lot of your issues are split, too, where, you know, one artist is doing part of it, another artist is doing another part of it.
I mean, first very nice, but yeah, one of the revelations of this video is when Miller talks about, like, he thinks the greatest art in comics is created by writer artists, and but he's evolving into thinking differently because he had just worked with Sienkiewicz and he had just worked with
Dave Mazzucchelli.
Yeah. And for me, that was like, it's a blow. It was almost like a body blow hearing that, because I don't 100% disagree with him in terms of, to make the art go to that next level. Sometimes it is a one guy thing. It's a Charles Schultz. It's a Frank Miller, and as someone who has only half of the brain to get it done, you're just. I feel like I'm a one-eyed man, or a blind man and see a one-eyed man. So, but yeah, so you have to. I think the only way to adjust to that is to let the art lead, and to realize that it's a visual medium and not a.
But were you thinking as you're when you're writing this script and you're working on it, it's like, this is who I want to do this?
It's almost the opposite. It's who is available. Okay, I adjust the story to it. It's not. It's.
Do you have the?
It's the other side of the circle, but it's just the. Yeah, I mean, the idea is here's your artist. Like I was just on the phone with someone who was offering me a gig, and I was like, well, who's the artist? Like, we don't have an artist. I was like, well, then I don't know what the pitch is. Like, I can't come with the pitch to the gig if you don't tell me the artist is. You're going to do a different story for Clay Mann than you are for Mitch Garrett.
So does that even go to character as well, Tom? In terms of okay, now I've got the artist. I mean, do you have a character in mind already, and possibly to springboard into how do you see yourself handling Mr. Miracle? How do you see yourself handling the Vision or whatever they've been, or again, is it through the conversation that it's like, oh, you want to do that kind of story? Well, what if we did that with the Vision or with Batman or whatever?
I mean, it's always different, but I think just in the way I like to do it, I'd rather have the character and the artist and then come up with the idea. I'd like to have them in that order. I've done the reverse where it's been the artist and the character, but I think it just, in terms of picturing, like with the Vision, I remember they gave me they had no power at all, right? So they're like, here's the character, here's the genre, here's the artist you're working with. Good luck. And I looked up Gabriel's work. I had never seen him before, and he was doing a Magneto book at the time. And I remember, like, the action scenes were fine, and I'm sure Gabriel will tell you this. I mean, they weren't. They weren't like Neil. They were just. And then I saw the quiet moments. They were brilliant. Like he was this fucking European artist. He was Mobius. That's what he did, was this cross-hatching quiet stuff. So I was like, well, we're doing a cross-hatching quiet book with this guy. Or so you get David Finch in, or you get Tony Daniel. You get somebody like that who's like, first of all, that guy's got to sell pages. So if you don't give him stuff to sell pages, he's not going to draw the best book. And if you're doing 16, like Dave Sims, no offense to Dave Sims and his Talking Heads theory, but if you give Dave Finch 16 Talking Heads pages, you just wasted the time of your audience. The time.
Right,
and 2 months of his life, he's going to hate you and not draw the next issue.
And going back to the way things used to be, the artists didn't get their pages back. So that was never even entered the equation of like, well, I'll be able to sell these pages. I mean, it was still about the storytelling. All it was about was the storytelling, and getting my money for the pages that I did, and getting it out on time. I mean, there's dozens of
the writer would
there's dozens of stories about guys who couldn't meet their deadline. I mean, I have stuff about Marshall not being able to make his deadlines. That Terry was telling me about. It's like Terry does not get the credit he deserves on those detective stories because he told me that Marshall was in a bad way in a lot of that, and he was doing a lot of drugs. He was having a lot of problems, and he couldn't meet the deadlines. And Terry said, "I'm getting less and less from him, and I'm filling in more and more."
Wow.
And a lot of that stuff is him. And in the end, when he asked for a raise from DC, they fired him. They fired him, and those Clayface issues were done by Dick Giordano because DC would not give him more money, even though he was doing more work.
Jeez. Is Terry still around?
Yeah.
You're going to have to put me in touch with Terry.
He's not working like so many other.
I don't know if he'd be willing to talk, but I would love to talk to him, obviously. Yeah, again, we'll talk off the air and everything. I won't obligate you on the air.
After watching this documentary, I let it run and watch the beginning of the Daredevil documentary, which they did for the movie, which they did with all the Daredevil creators.
I haven't seen that.
Oh,
it's on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. It's pretty interesting.
I'll look for that.
It's great. Gene Colan's on there. Renata Senior's on there. Brian is on there.
He goes from Stan Lee to Bendis, basically all the guys. And Colin was on there, and I'd heard him talk to you, so I'd heard this story before, but it was just seeing it in person where he's like, I had to make my deadline, so I gave up my life. I just didn't see my children, and I didn't see my wife, and I'm trying to make up for it now. And he just says it straight to the camera. He's like, I just rather draw than do anything else. And so that's what I did for 20 hours a day for 30 years. And it just heartbreaks you. It's just heartbreaking.
And guys like, I know Vinnie Coletta has like this horrible reputation, but
I just bought a Vinnie Coletta Kirby page.
Well,
wow.
Or was it Vinnie Coletta Thor page, like a Thor page?
No, it was a romance page.
Those Thor
that's cool.
Things those Kirby Coletta Thor page stuff is great. I love Coletta's inking on that, but Vinnie Coletta was the one guy when DC wanted to fire Rogers and Austin because Joe Orlando hated their work. He couldn't stand them, and he wanted to fire. And Vinnie Coletta, who was the art director at the time, this is in Batcave Companion. Vinnie Coletta was
hated Terry Austin. Terry was brilliant inks. Too heavy? I don't know. Why would you hate?
Paul Galassi hated Terry Austin, and I think Terry Austin was the best inker for Paul. I told Paul to his face. I said, he said, too many pens. Too many pens. Too much pen work. He didn't like the pen work. But I think Terry's my favorite inker. And
Tom Palmer is my favorite.
Tom Palmer was great too. But Terry, I just love Terry's work. I loved his work on Byrne. I loved his work on Marshall. And I loved his work on Miller too. Klaus Janson is the greatest on Miller. But I loved Terry's work on Miller.
So finish the Coletta thing. Yeah.
So Vinnie Coletta was the art director for DC. He's the one who came to the rescue of Rogers and Austin. They were in an office. They had been berated by Orlando, and they were sent out of the office, and they were in a waiting room outside. And Coletta was in there. He and Orlando got into a screaming match, and basically Coletta saved them and kept them on so that they could stay on. And Vinnie Coletta ended up inking a lot of Marshall's work on Mr. Miracle that he did with Steve Englehart.
Oh, wow.
Because Marshall couldn't finish. He couldn't get the deadline done.
Which is beautiful work. The hardcover just came out.
Marshall had no problem with Vinnie doing the inks. That's what Marshall told me. He said because he saved my ass. I couldn't make the deadline, and Vinny came in and like inked and finished the story overnight and finished it and got it done and saved my ass.
I'm glad to hear that because in Wayne, I appreciate your comment that Coletta is known for erasing Kirby pencils on pages. That's a familiar story, and it's absolutely true. But I also think that Coletta did a lot of good work as well as erase a lot of good work, and I don't think gets enough credit for his own skill.
I'm not saying Vinny Coletta was a great inker. I'm not saying that at all. But Vinny Coletta was like this guy who came in, this like renegade, soldier for a fortune hire, that would come in and save a deadline because the book wasn't going to come out on time.
Right. And that's and again, it's deadline art. And yeah, it is a crying shame that to make the deadline, he would do that erasing and stuff, but he would get the job done. And also, I'll tell you, man, when he drew Wonder Woman, he knew how to draw romance. And I would say Wonder Woman was drawn in the style of good romance books when he was doing it in the 70s. Mm-hmm. And again, it's part of the story that always gets left out. And by the way, that same podcast that puts everybody on a pedestal or whatever the hell it is. I'm so angry I can't even enunciate. But really, it's again, Vinny Coletta. And it's like, hey, there's a second half of the story that you're not telling. And it kind of pisses me off that you guys who claim to be such lovers of comic book art and then such experts, it's like, you're missing half the story.
That bothers me. I'm at 10% right now.
Go. All right, well, let's wrap up. Gentlemen, this was outstanding. I appreciated every tangent from Buzzer to Twilight Zone and everything else but Columbo and this great comic book documentary that we were discussing. Masters of Comic Book Art. If you haven't seen it, please check it out. It's on YouTube. And Ken is great about that. Because I'm like, does that suck that, you're not making money off this? He said, no. He goes, I want people to see my movie. No. And again, listen to the Word Balloon episode with Ken and you'll understand that, it's a great story about how it was made, how it was distributed, how we got everybody on the documentary. So I absolutely recommend that. And watch more Columbo. Again, not only on some of the outlets that we've mentioned in DVD, but I've seen the YouTube episodes of Columbo that are up as well.
Columbo, donate to the Film Noir Foundation. Help the Film Noir Foundation. I had to cancel all our festivals keep, help us out, donate $20 to the filmnoirfoundation.org. And you'll get a subscription to Noir City Magazine, and you'll really be helping out, Noir Alley and everything. I mean, it would be a big help because times are tough.
I agree, and Tom, again, repeat because I really think it's a great cause that all the creators are doing to help the comic shops out with these auctions that they're creating to help out.
Yes. If you go, I am auctioning off 13 signed hardcovers and a sketch by me, which will be terrible, and a script. And it's Tom King TK. It's on Twitter. You just go and you just reply to the tweet and
place your bid.
And place your bid. Yeah, but
that's excellent.
My endorsement would be again to subscribe to this podcast. Press the subscribe button right now. It doesn't hurt your phone to have too many. If you're afraid, just ignore it, but it's a wonderful podcast. And pitching $1 to $4 to John for this thing.
Yes,
it's worth a comic. It's worth don't Strange Adventures. You don't have to buy it. It's good. It'll be fine. I've got 12 issues guaranteed. Throw that money towards John.
Keep this shit going, okay? You help John. Keep this going.
Well, Mike, I'd say the same thing about Noir City and Ringside Seat. They're both incredible publications. Tell us the monster book again.
Monsters from the Vault, but that's kind of dead. So
okay, all right.
That's old. That's old news.
We'll stick with Noir City and we'll stick with Ringside City.
Back issue Tomorrow's. Help out Tomorrow's.
Absolutely.
All
yes.
this stuff. Tomorrows.com. All the stuff is available there. It's a good cause.
It's magazines like that Tomorrow's puts out and the books that they put out, like the Batcave Companion, and the old magazines like Comics Journal and Amazing Heroes and Comic Buyers Marketplace and everything. That was the inspiration for Word Balloon. That's exactly why I wanted to do this kind of podcast. And again, your guys' contributions when you guys come on are always helpful, including tonight. So with Mike's iPad just dying and hanging by a thread right now. We will wrap things up. Thank you all for participating in the chat. Thank you for the multi-language things. I don't know what people were saying. I hope I'm hoping some people got some dirty things up there and other other comments. But great conversation, gentlemen. I always appreciate it. And thank you for watching. This will be up on the Word Balloon podcast sometime on Friday. So if you want to hear yourselves again, get your chats mentioned and stuff, that's where you can hear it. But thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks. See you guys.
All right. We are on.